Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is part 4 of What If Naruto Was Reborn with all his memories. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. Tomorrow was the day. The Chunin exams would start tomorrow, an event that Naruto did not have very fond memories of. Many things would take place during the exams, and there were many things he had to change. Naruto-sama. What? Naruto turned up from his bowl and stared at Yuzuru, who was gazing at the teetering tower of ramen bowls in front of her uneasily. Haku sat on the opposite side of him with an amused smile on her face. The three of them were eating at Ichiraku's, or rather Naruto was eating and Yuzuru and Haku were watching. Do you really think this is the best way to spend the last day before the Chunin exams? Yuzuru asked. Shouldn't we be doing something more productive? Nope, Naruto answered shortly as he finished off his bowl. Ayame-chan, another one, please. Ayame sighed and placed another bowl in front of him. She glanced at the bowl tower in mild fascination. I think you broke your record for how much ramen you can eat in 1 hour. Ayame sighed. Even for Naruto this was impressive. Though she didn't know whether to be impressed or disgusted, she retreated to the back to help her father. I know you're worried, but Yuzuru-chan is right, Haku remarked, still smiling at the blonde amusedly. Rather than distract yourself, you could be out training for tomorrow. Naruto sighed and glanced at Haku, who gave him a knowing smile. He shifted his gaze to the fox girl on his other side to see her staring at him with a worried expression etched on her face. So they could tell how he truly felt about tomorrow despite his trying to keep an indifferent, nonchalant attitude towards things. The Jinchuriki paused in his eating and lightly tapped his chopsticks against his half-empty ramen bowl. It was true, he was worried about tomorrow. He had felt confident and upbeat just days before today, but as the Chunin exams drew closer, his old memories about the difficulties and tragedies that took place during the exams resurfaced in his mind. For the past 2 days he had done nothing but reflect on the events that would take place, even during training. Training that had gone exceedingly well for him. Naruto was proud to say that thanks to Haku, he had learned more of a variety of jutsu. While most of them were water and wind techniques, he had picked up on a few Kakashi knew. The Jonin had interrupted their sessions a few times and taught the boy a few techniques of his own. Along with that, Naruto was finally starting to get some of the sword techniques Yuzuru taught him down. He was still on the basics, but he was slowly starting to get the hang of it. Hinata's chakra control training really helped him. Not only did Naruto learn how to use his chakra more efficiently, but he finally learned how to make a one-handed Rasengan without the aid of a clone. His almost daily training with the rest of Team 7 helped strengthen him as well. In short, Naruto was far stronger than he had been in the past during this point. Even still, he couldn't shake off his feelings of unease. He shook his head, wishing that there was some way to chase away his doubts. He had a plan, he had allies, he was well prepared. I am worried, Naruto admitted. He nervously tapped his chopsticks against his bowl. There's just so much to do. So many events. We've done everything we can to prepare for the first part of the exams. Yuzuru assured her master, placing a comforting hand on his arm. Kakashi-san helped us with the plans, and Anko-san has agreed to lend us her aid. We'll have someone watching out for you and your team during the second test. 2 people, Haku smiled. Don't worry, Anko-san and I will be there when Orochimaru shows up. Naruto sighed and gave Haku a tired but thankful smile. Anko had signed up Haku as an assistant proctor during the exams. The Mist Girl was signed on to help Anko run the second test, when in reality, it was all a part of the plan Kakashi and Naruto had made to fight Orochimaru. Could it be that you don't have faith in us, Naruto-san? Haku asked in mock hurt and surprise. Hey, don't make fun of me. This was a very traumatic time in my life. Naruto groaned miserably. He stared into his half-empty ramen bowl jadedly. It'll be dangerous, you know. Every mission will be dangerous, Haku said, taking on a more serious tone. We just have to do our best to make sure things turn out for the best. I know. Naruto nodded, feeling his irritation build up. He couldn't help himself. His nerves were getting the better of him. It's just that there's so much to do, so many things to change, so many things that need to be taken into account. It's just so frustrating for me to have to wait like this. Naruto glared at his ramen bowl. Another thing that frustrated and worried him was that he hadn't seen Gaara at all. For the past few days now he had seen and interacted with a few foreign ninja who had shown up to partake in the Chunin exams. He had seen ninja from Taki, Kusa, aim, and Suna roaming around the village for the past couple of days, but he had seen no sign of Gaara or the Sand siblings at all. Another thing that worried him was the lack of Odo ninja wandering around. In order to get an advantage that would aid them when Suna and Odo attacked, Naruto had to find the Ikibi container. Naruto-sama. The Jinchuriki blinked, turning towards the fox girl who had addressed him. I know that this feeling of uncertainty frustrates you, and knowing of the future and what may come to be further aggravates you. Yujiro said softly, trying to comfort her master. She smiled at him. Remember what we discussed in Kirigakur's forest weeks ago. There is no way to predict the outcome of a mission just because you know what may happen, but you do have the power to change things for the better, do you not? As long as you're confident, I'm sure everything will go the way you want them to. And as mentioned already, we've made proper arrangements to counter Orochimaru and his plans. Haku smiled at the blonde, placing an encouraging hand on his opposite shoulder. We will support you, Naruto-san. Shouldn't that fact alone help build up your confidence? You too, thanks, Naruto grinned, letting out a relaxed sigh as both girls smiled at him. I guess drowning my worries in ramen isn't the way to go about things. The blonde nodded to himself. He'd stop worrying and start focusing on what he could do for his last day before the exams. Priority number 1 for now was finding Gaara. Guess we should get going then. Naruto smiled, taking note of the large tower of ramen bowls with a bit of pride. Just gotta pay for this stuff and finish off the rest, then we can be on. Naruto dug around inside his pants pocket, trying to feel around for his wallet. Yujiro tilted her head curiously at his worried expression while Haku's amused look made a return. You forgot your wallet, didn't you? Haku chuckled lightly. The boy didn't respond, he just retracted his hand and stared in front of him with a blank expression. A few moments of silence passed between the trio. Naruto saw. Damn it, Naruto shouted, slamming his fists down on the table and causing the two girls to jump in surprise. Unfortunately, one of his hands had come down on the edge of his ramen bowl, flipping it upwards over the distraught blonde's head and out into the crowded streets. Someone's angry outburst followed shortly after it had been launched. Gwa, what the hell, is this ramen? Shit, Naruto muttered, smiling uneasily as he berated himself for letting his frazzled nerves and need to vent get the better of him. He made a move to get up but felt a rough hand on his shoulder. Hey punk, you think this is funny? Naruto's brow furrowed when the familiar voice spoke to him. The blonde turned and was greeted with a welcoming, if not humorous, sight. Kankuro stood behind him with the ramen bowl on his head, its remaining contents decorating his head and face. Some of the liquid had smeared his face paint. Crow was wrapped up in bandages attached to his back. The puppeteer looked like he was ready to kill something. Sorry, total accident and I apologize. Naruto grinned at the older teen. In truth he had never gotten along with Kankuro, but now wasn't the time to make enemies with the snarky remark he could have responded with. Kankuro, where did you go? Someone who Naruto was on much better terms with in his past life made her appearance. Tamari stepped next to Kankuro, acknowledging the trio her brother was confronting with a quick glance before turning towards him. Her scold quickly turned into a fit of laughter when she noticed what was on the boy's head. See something funny, Kankuro growled. Hilarious, actually, Tamari laughed, smirking at the puppeteer. I think the new look suits you. Naruto chuckled at the girl's attitude. She was still as charming as ever. Screw off, Kankuro muttered, before turning back towards Naruto. He grabbed the front of the boy's shirt. And you think sorry is enough for what you did? Hey, save it for the exams. Naruto bit back, shoving the boy off him. He gestured to his headband. That is what you're here for, right? In case you haven't noticed what's on my forehead, I'm a ninja too, so I'll be in the exams with my team. We'll have plenty of time to chat then. Maybe, but just because we're not taking a quiz right now doesn't mean I can't kick your ass for dumping ramen on my head. Kankuro smirked. The Suna ninja reached back and placed the mummified crow on the ground next to him. Tamari stepped back a little bit, not moving to stop Kankuro but interested by how the opposing ninja would take it. Naruto clicked his tongue and fingered the kunai in his pocket, debating whether or not he should retaliate or try to resolve things more peacefully with his future allies. I would advise against that. Kankuro blinked when he felt small pricks of cold steel against his neck. The boy gulped and glanced to his side, staring into Haku's smiling visage as she held 3 Senbon needles to the nerves in his neck. Even Tamari looked visibly shaken by her action, more than startled by the fact she hadn't even seen the girl move. As assistant proctor of the second test of the Chunin exams, I will forbid any participants engaging each other until the exams actually start if I can help it. Haku said as she gently pressed the needles against his neck. Hey, wait a minute. You expect me to believe another genin is a proctor for the exams? Konkuro accused. Just because I'm as old as you doesn't mean you can group us together. I'll have you know that I'm a Chunin. Haku countered, still smiling. Naruto-san apologized. Why don't you save this for tomorrow when the Chunin exams actually start, Konkuro and Temari exchanged uneasy glances. They also took note that the remaining two hadn't just been watching. The one called Naruto had a kunai grasped in his hands while the girl with white hair had a sword placed in her lap. They were a little surprised by this since she was carrying such a weapon in broad daylight, and there was something more intimidating about a sword when compared to a shuriken or kunai. The Suna siblings also noticed that they had attracted a fair amount of attention due to their shenanigans. Naruto sighed as he fiddled with the kunai in his hands. He didn't really want to resort to threats, but the weapons were already out, so what the hell, Naruto thought sullenly as he responded to Konkuro's glare with one of his own. Even if the situation was bad, it was nice to see Konkuro and Temari again. The question was if they were here, where was? What are you two doing? Naruto almost shouted and jumped for joy when a familiar boy with short red hair stepped out of the crowd. Gee Gaara, Temari stammered, alarmed by his appearance. He gave her an expressionless look, which didn't do much to calm her down. We were just. Most of the Sunanin who had been in the area had quickly stepped away from the boy when he had made his presence known, and many others followed suit when they felt the bloodlust and killing intent coming from the Ikibi container. Do as the assistant proctor said and stop this foolishness. Gaara ordered, glaring as his siblings. His gaze shifted to Naruto. I'll slaughter him myself in due time. While Konkuro was sweating buckets because of his sociopath of a brother, he silently marveled at how the three in front of him were reacting to him. The young Chunin girl had released him and would occasionally glance at Gaara. She seemed a little apprehensive, but not visibly worried or frantic like the villagers and ninja around them. The sword-wielding girl didn't look scared at all. She just stared at Gaara with a somewhat curious gaze. Her reaction surprised him. However, what surprised him most was the boy who he had tried to threaten. For some reason or another, the blonde kid had a happy grin that stretched from ear to ear and was almost bouncing in his chair. He looked almost excited. Both San siblings were at a loss. Could they all not feel the killing intent that was thick in the air? Whatever. He's not worth my time, Konkuro mumbled, turning away from the trio and trying to regain some of his dignity. We should get going. Baki-sensei said he wanted to talk with us. Konkuro, Gaara, Temari gestured to both of them, shooting a meaningful look at the Ikibi container. What's your name? Gaara asked Naruto slowly, ignoring his sister despite her silent pleas. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto smiled, trying and failing to keep a straight face. Very well, I look forward to seeing you again. Gaara muttered as he turned away from them. I look forward to killing someone like me. The people in the streets made a path for the boy as he departed with his siblings. Konkuro and Temari followed behind him nervously, hoping that he wouldn't cause any trouble. Or kill anyone. So that was Gaara. Haku breathed as the villagers and ninja returned to doing their business. Don't let his personality fool you. He's a great friend once you get to know him. Naruto grinned. I'm not sure I want to, Haku said, laughing off her discomfort. The amount of killing intent I felt from him was just. Didn't you two feel anything? I did, but if he was Naruto-sama's ally then there is no reason to fear him. Yujiro smiled. From Naruto's memories, she was aware of how Naruto had influenced Gaara and what a great man he had become. Gaara-san is a very kind person. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't feel a thing. Naruto smiled. Admittedly, he had felt a bit uneasy, but his excitement and happiness from seeing another one of his dear friends had quickly overcome his fear. I suppose your obliviousness has its benefits. Haku chuckled. Why do all your compliments sound so insulting? Naruto asked her testily. He shook his head and smiled. Don't be so quick to judge Gaara, Haku. He just needs to remember, that's all. So you plan to give him your memories? Haku said in a hushed voice. Are you sure that is wise? Naruto-sama is well aware of the risks. Yujiro smiled. He is assured that Gaara will make an excellent ally. He's actually the only one I had absolute confidence in when it came to sharing my memories with someone. Naruto spoke with certainty. He'll help us. All right then. Haku smiled at the boy's confidence. I just hope that when he remembers he'll lose that killer edge of his. I'm not sure I'd like to be in the same room as him otherwise. It'll be fine, Naruto grinned, assuring Haku of his safety. He stuck his head over the counter. Hey, Ayame-chan, tell your old man I'll pay later. There's something I have to do. The Jinchuriki turned and smiled at the white-haired girl beside him. Yujiro smiled back. Ready to go? Naruto asked. Yes, Yujiro replied with a nod. And what would you have me do? Haku asked curiously. You can come with us if you want, but if not then wait at the house. Naruto advised her, remember the meeting we have tonight with Kakashi and Anko. Then I'll let you take care of it, Haku said, waving them off as her two friends started to leave. Be careful. Naruto grinned and chuckled with mild excitement. He turned back and smiled at the mist girl. Trust me, Gaara will be the advantage that will help us during the Chunin exams. Naruto smiled before departing with Yujiro to find his fellow container. XXXXX. So until the invasion plan begins, you three are to cause no trouble. Am I clear, Gaara? The Jinchuriki nodded slightly in acknowledgement of his sensei. Baki may have been talking to all of them, but he was warning him specifically. The boy didn't move as Kankuro and Temari nodded their heads obediently. Gaara honestly couldn't have cared less about what they told him to do, but he could restrain himself for a while. Only if so I can fight those two, Gaara thought to himself as he remembered two interesting people he had met earlier that day. Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto. Gaara had heard great things about the Uchiha and had looked forward to meeting him even before coming to Konoha. He had met him during his walk with his team, giving the Sasuke a brief warning before leaving. The other individual had surprised him. The Uzumaki kid. It wasn't just because he had the same condition as him, no, but rather it was the way he presented himself when facing a threat. Gaara had targeted Naruto, but the boy had shown no signs of discomfort even when he had directed nearly all his killing intent towards the blonde. Even then, that disturbingly confident and excited smile had never left his face. Maybe he wasn't skilled or perceptive enough to feel another's killing intent. Or maybe he's just stupid. Gaara muttered before turning towards the door. Gaara, where are you going? Baki asked. Kankuro and Temari wondered briefly if the demon was acting up again. For a walk, Gaara answered shortly. He exited the inn and shut the door behind him before his sensei or his siblings could further detain him. The Ikibi container calmly made his way through the streets. The sun was starting to set and it was far less crowded than it had been earlier that day. Not that he was complaining. He could do without the villagers, prattle and their fearful stares. Even if he was an unfamiliar to Konoha that didn't stop everyone from avoiding him. Gaara's eyes narrowed when he felt a familiar presence close to him. Well, almost everyone, the youth murmured as he stepped down an abandoned street. Gaara scanned the area to make sure that no one was around. Sand started to pour out of the gourd on his back. The boy didn't make a move as the sand danced around him menacingly. Come out, Gaara demanded in an emotionless voice. I know you're here somewhere. Damn, did I really make it that obvious? Gaara's eyes shot to a bush a few feet away that started to rustle. He recognized that voice from earlier today. Gaara grinned when his sand started jumping higher as his blood boiled, anticipating the kill that was to come. Alright, I'm coming out now. The bush shook, making it appear as though someone was going to come out of it. Gaara readied himself, preparing to mutilate whoever came out of the bush with his sand. And then a white fox quickly jumped from the bush and sat in the center of the path. It calmly licked its paw, seeming to ignore the boy in front of it. Gaara stared at the fox, at a sudden loss for words. He suddenly felt someone's presence behind him. So, how did you like fox replacement technique? Naruto asked with a menacing grin as he stood behind Gaara. You're an idiot, Gaara deadpanned, clearly annoyed by Naruto's prank. The redhead turned and stared down the blonde who simply smiled in response. Do you have a reason for being here? Gaara asked emotionlessly. I was looking for you, actually. Naruto grinned. I thought we could talk. As fellow Jinchuriki, I thought we could get along. Gaara arched an eyebrow at him in mild surprise. So you know of the beast inside, Gaara muttered, glaring at the boy. You're not as stupid as I thought. Ikibi no Shukaku if I'm not mistaken. Naruto said as he pointed at Gaara. One tail. I have the Kyuubi no Yoko sealed inside me. 9 tails, Gaara said darkly, surprised that he had met the Jinchuriki of the strongest tailed beast. Even more sand started to pour out of the gourd on his back. Hey, you okay? Naruto asked tentatively as a smile slowly made its way onto Gaara's features. You've got this crazy look in your eye. I'm excited. Gaara grinned manically. Naruto could feel his bloodlust. You're strong. As another Jinchuriki you must be. I want to kill you now. I have to kill you now. And what would that solve? Naruto asked, arching an eyebrow at his companion. We're the same. I could tell people are afraid of you because of the beast. I'm in the same boat. We were both treated harshly because we are Jinchuriki, you know. We should be able to understand each other, so what's the point of fighting? It is because we are the same that we have to fight. Why I have to kill you? Gaara replied, laughing maniacally as the beast inside him encouraged him to slaughter the boy in front of him. Killing makes me stronger. Defeating the powerful justifies my existence. Slaughtering my enemies because I. See, now that's the difference between you and me. Naruto pointed out, interrupting the boy. You live and fight because you think your hatred and anger makes you who you are. I fight to protect those precious to me. I fight for the people who love me. And you think that makes you strong. You think you'll be able to protect them. Gaara laughed. His sand flew and jumped around him, reacting to his emotions. Not without your help. Gaara stopped. His sand settled. The response had surprised him. The Ikibi container stared at the Kyuubi container. What? Gaara asked, clearly confused. I failed, Gaara. We failed. Naruto sighed, remembering events from the past. We wanted to protect the people close to us, but we couldn't. We couldn't beat Madara. You, what are you talking about? Gaara demanded, trying to make sense of what Naruto was saying. I'm sorry. Naruto apologized, surprising Gaara even more. You put your faith in me and I failed you. I told you that you could count on me but you died protecting me and then I was killed by the man I promised you I'd defeat. I'm sorry, Gaara, I'm truly sorry. Uzumaki. Gaara wondered, his eyes wide. What are you? But I promise you, things will be different this time. Naruto said, stepping towards the red head with a determined spark in his eyes. Yujira. Before Gaara could react, a new voice resounded in his ears. Yes, Naruto-sama. The Ikibi container whirled around and was shocked to find a girl with white hair stood where the fox had been just a moment ago. He would have questioned her sudden appearance and why she had fox ears on her head, but the girl suddenly dashed forward and placed two of her fingers on his forehead. She had moved too quick for his sand to block or push her away. Gaara blinked when Naruto appeared next to her and she placed 2 digits on his forehead with her other hand. Remember your past life, Gaara-san. And just like that, the memories flashed in the Jinchuriki's head just like Kakashi, Zabuza and Utakata before him. He remembered everything from when he met Naruto, to fighting his fellow Jinchuriki, to becoming Kazekage, to his first death, to when he was revived, to his battle against Madara's army, and then it ended with his second death. Naruto watched Gaara silently. The boy just stood there with his mouth hanging open slightly as the memories flashed in his mind. The Ikibi container's eyes regained their focus. He turned his head towards Naruto as Yujira stepped away from him. How's it going? Naruto grinned, offering the boy some sort of greeting. Gaara just stared at him. And then slowly, a smile formed on the redhead's lips. Naruto. The blonde clasped his fellow Jinchuriki on the shoulder and gave him his trademark grin. It's good to see you again, Gaara, Naruto said warmly as he smiled at his friend. All of this is, how did you? Gaara said in amazement. He gestured to himself Wildy. How am I? How are we still alive? Feels weird, huh? Naruto grinned, wrapping an arm around the boy's shoulder. To be brought back to life again. Though, this would be your second time, wouldn't it? I suppose it would, Gaara admitted with a small smile. He gave Naruto a questioning look. Still, I believe an explanation is in order. Yeah, I heard the same from Kakashi and Zabuza. Naruto laughed, waving his friend off. Kakashi-san is alive too? Gaara asked in astonishment. Everyone's alive. We're back at the beginning, Gaara. We've been given a second chance. Naruto said gleefully, ecstatic that he had yet another companion who could help him fight against Madara. Another close friend who was alive and well. I'll answer all your questions. We've got time. Good, Gaara nodded. He glanced behind him when he heard soft footsteps following them. And another thing. Yeah. Who is she? Gaara asked curiously, pointing to the smiling girl behind him with fox ears on her head. Naruto just laughed and led Gaara through the street and towards his house. They had some time before the meeting. He'd tell him everything. XXXXX. We there yet? Anko asked in annoyance. Yes, actually. Kakashi smiled under his mask as they arrived at Naruto's house. It was late at night already. Kakashi and Naruto had made arrangements for a meeting at the Jinchuriki's apartment to discuss the Chunin exams. Anko overlooked the complex with a lazy eye. "Looks like shit," Anko said bluntly, earning a chuckle from the copy nin. She glanced down when she noticed the myriad of colors sprouting out of a small flower patch in front. "Your student likes to garden." "His friend does," Kakashi replied as they made their way up the stairs to Naruto's room. "Let's not keep them waiting." Kakashi opened the door and stepped inside the apartment with Anko following after him. He was greeted by the 4 people sitting inside the room. "Impeccable timing as always." Haku chuckled mockingly as Kakashi and Anko entered the building. "Naruto-san wasn't joking when he told me you arrived late to everything, Kakashi-san." Hey, don't go around ruining my reputation." Kakashi smiled at Naruto under his mask. The blonde chuckled in response. "I have a perfectly good reason for being late. And I'm sure we'd love to hear all about it later." Naruto grinned. "Glad you guys could make it though." "Of course." Kakashi chuckled. He nodded to the redhead sitting beside Yuzura. "Gaara, it's good to see you." "Kakashi-san." Gaara gave a slight nod of acknowledgement. "Naruto told me you were a part of this too." "Hey, Kakashi, what's with all the kids?" Anko said incredulously, taking note of the group of teens assembled before her. "Aren't there any other adults in on this plan? Am I not good enough for you?" Kakashi asked wryly. Anko ignored his comment and gestured to the kids in front of them. "I can understand why you don't want to tell the Hokage, but you don't honestly expect me to believe these children can fight Orochimaru," Anko said, narrowing her eyes at Kakashi. "My old sensei is no pushover." "And neither are they," Kakashi countered, overlooking each of them. "Every one of them is extremely talented. Don't make the mistake of underestimating them, Anko." If you say so," Anko said slowly, the surprising intensity in Kakashi's voice silencing her protests. "I do have a question though. Why did you bring the Suna kid with you?" Anko's gaze rested on Gaara. "This is Konoha's problem, right? Why does a foreign ninja have to get involved?" "Because there's more to this than we had originally thought," Kakashi said, remembering Suna's betrayal in the past and how it had caught Konoha completely by surprise. "Orochimaru isn't the only thing we need to worry about. I have information that will drastically change your plans, I'm sure," Gaara added, gaining everyone's attention. "What Orochimaru plans to do will affect my village as well." "How so?" Gaara leaned forward, narrowing his eyes at the female Jonin. "Suna is working with Orochimaru and are planning to invade Konoha." For the next hour or so Gaara, Naruto, and Kakashi helped explain everything to Anko concerning Orochimaru's plans and Suna's involvement. Haku and Yuzura would add an occasional comment, but otherwise remained silent. After everything was said and done, Anko sat down with a serious expression on her face. "I see, so Sensei runs Otogakure, huh?" Anko murmured. "I thought that they were just a new village that popped up. But I guess there was more to it than that. I can't imagine him having that many men here, but the threat that needs to be addressed is Suna," Kakashi remarked. "There are more Suna ninja here attending the exams than there are Oto ninja. And Gaara's people are sure to be more skilled than the rabble Orochimaru's gathered up," Naruto stated with confidence, remembering how Gaara and his siblings had helped his friends against the Sanin's Sound 4. Naruto frowned at his words. Although that fact wasn't necessarily a good thing with the position they were in. "But that's what's bothering me," Anko said, giving Gaara a suspicious look. "You're a Suna ninja, aren't you? Why would you share this information with ninja of the village you're going to invade?" "Just because I'm from Suna doesn't mean I condone its actions. It was my foolish father's idea anyway," Gaara responded. "Of course, that man was probably dead now courtesy of Orochimaru." "So you would willingly betray your own village then?" Anko asked again, frowning at the boy. She was grateful that the boy had decided to share such valuable intel and give them fair warning, but it all seemed too good to be true. Plus, she just couldn't stand the thought of someone betraying their village even if they were benefiting from Gaara's information. Betrayal reminded her too much of her sensei. "Hey, don't treat Gaara like that," Naruto asserted as he glared at Anko, ready to defend his friend. "Can't you just—" "Naruto," Gaara interrupted him. He gave Naruto a small smile when the blonde gave him an unsure glance. "I appreciate you sticking up for me, but I can speak for myself." "All right, sorry." Naruto nodded to the boy's polite request and sat back down. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki smiled to himself. It was good to have the nice Gaara back. "I am doing what I feel is best for my village." Gaara said, turning his attention towards Anko. His emotionless mask returned to his face, conveying his serious feelings. Orochimaru is not someone who can be trusted. The power and promises he gives will only lead to one's own corruption. I will not let my village or its people suffer because of that man. Gaara shot Naruto a sympathetic look as he said this. Naruto smiled a bit in return and looked to the floor with glazed eyes. It was because of Orochimaru that his best friend had gone astray in his past life. The man was to blame for Sasuke's corruption. It'll be different this time. Naruto thought fiercely as he clenched his fists together. He'd save Sasuke this time. Since you and I are complete strangers, I can't expect you to trust me, but, Gaara continued. You have my word I will not betray you. If my word isn't enough, then know that I would never betray a friend. Thanks, pal. Naruto grinned, wrapping an arm around the boy's shoulders in a headlock. I knew I could count on you. I still owe you, after all. Gaara replied, allowing a small grin to come to his features. Kakashi watched the two, smiling underneath his mask. Haku and Yujiro also regarded the duo with happy expressions. Naruto and Gaara were both the same, and it was good to see that giving Gaara his memories had turned out so well. The Ikibi container was just as kind as his past self. He'll become Kazekage again for sure, Kakashi thought to himself as he stared at the red head. All right then, Anko said, grinning at the people in front of her. The kid seems sincere, so I'll trust him for now. Thank you, Gaara said, nodding towards the woman gratefully. Don't worry about it, brat. Anko laughed, waving him off. She leaned forward eagerly. So what's the plan? Everyone's attention went to Naruto, who had just let go of Gaara. The boy cleared his throat and his expression went from carefree to serious. We've made the necessary preparations, so all we need to do is make sure Orochimaru's plans don't go the way he wants them to. Naruto said, giving each of his companions a stern look. Gaara has already said the invasion won't happen until the end of the exams, so for now we have to keep Orochimaru away from his target. Sasuke, Kakashi said quietly as a few choice memories flashed in his mind. Exactly, Naruto nodded. He turned towards Anko and Haku. You two will keep an eye on us during the exams. I can't exactly trail you during the exams. How do you expect me to keep an eye on you? Anko asked, crossing her arms. There was a reason Naruto-san had me sign up as your assistant. Haku said, smiling at the Jonin. You see, I have an ability that allows me to transfer to different places at will. Really? My ice mirrors. Haku smiled. All we have to do is place them throughout the forest. When we see Orochimaru we'll attack. Simple as that. I see. Anko nodded. Her eyes narrowed. Although, he probably knows that he can't just waltz into the exams. He's going to be in disguise. Which is why you'll have to wait until he attacks us during the second exam. Naruto stated nervously. Be sure to get there as soon as you can. Don't worry, we'll be there. Promise. Haku smiled at him reassuringly. Naruto smiled back in thanks. And the invasion, what do we do about Suna? Anko asked. If we can kill Orochimaru in the second exams, I don't think his men or Suna will be confident enough to attack Konoha. Naruto replied, narrowing his eyes. It would be killing two birds with one stone. It was something he really hoped for. And if not? Anko asked, leaning back a bit. She closed her eyes. Part of me seriously doubts that Sensei will be killed so easily. Suna won't move unless I do first. Gaara interjected, surprising Anko with his statement. I'm their triumph card. I am the reason why my father was confident enough to join forces with Orochimaru to attack Konoha. What makes you so special? Anko muttered in confusion. Anko, Naruto and Gaara are the same. Kakashi told the woman slowly. What's that supposed to mean? Anko demanded, rounding on the copy nin. They have the same condition. Kakashi said, giving her a meaningful look. Anko glared at him for a bit before her eyes widened in realization. She turned towards the two boys and pointed at Gaara. There was only one explanation for why the village was so confident in a child. You mean you're a... Yes, Gaara nodded. And you know about the... Anko asked, pointing at Naruto. Yeah, Naruto smiled sheepishly at her. Anko just stood there in silence, understanding why the boys got along so well. She smiled and turned towards Gaara, scratching her cheek sheepishly. Well, shit, I'm sure glad you're on our side then. Anko chuckled lightly. So am I, Gaara replied. Anko sighed and stood up. She gave Naruto and Kakashi a half-lidded look. So then I suppose we just wait until tomorrow then. Anko said quietly as she gazed up at the ceiling. After so many years, I'll finally see Sensei again. Nervous? Kakashi asked. Excited, actually, Anko grinned. Her eyes had a dangerous glint. I'll finally get back at that bastard. I will too, Naruto thought to himself as she said that. He smiled at the woman. Thanks for agreeing to help us, Anko. Ha, I should be thanking you and Kakashi for including me. Anko grinned as she made her way towards the door. I'll help you guys out with whatever you need. I say it's fair payback for giving me the chance to get a crack at my old sensei. Even still, I really appreciate your helping us. Naruto grinned. It means a lot, Kakashi added, nodding at the woman. Meh, whatever, Anko chuckled. I'll just be excusing myself then. I hope everything goes well tomorrow. So do I, Naruto mumbled quietly. Anko left the apartment, leaving the remaining 5 to talk amongst themselves. After she had gone, those who were aware of the bigger picture had time to talk. Kakashi smiled at Gaara. I was confident that if anyone was willing to help Naruto it would be you, Gaara. Kakashi smiled in approval. Thank you. I should be thanking the two of you. Gaara responded, nodding at Naruto and Kakashi. Both of you had done so much for me in the past, it is only natural that I would help you with your endeavors. Plus, Naruto could have chosen not to give me back my memories. I am grateful you trusted me enough to do so. I knew you'd have my back. Naruto grinned at Gaara. You were one of the few people I can trust with my life. I'm glad you have so much faith in me. Yeah, sorry about, well, everything that happened, I guess. Naruto sighed, remembering events from the past again. I failed to stop Madara. Stop. Naruto stopped when Gaara ordered it. The boy's expression was sad. If anything, I should be apologizing to you, Naruto. Naruto blinked in confusion. Before he could ask, Gaara interrupted him. I was the commander of our united ninja forces. In the beginning, things had gone so well, but I couldn't predict what was to come, Gaara said remorsefully. Kabuto tricked me. Our forces crumbled thanks to me, and only after you arrived did the battle stabilize. We lost many lives that day, and if you and B hadn't arrived to help we would have lost many more. I wasn't strong enough to win the battle for you, and even during the final battle against Madara I was unable to help you. I was killed, and I wasn't able to help you when the time came. I'm so. Don't finish that sentence, Naruto interrupted him. Gaara blinked when Naruto offered him a kind smile. It wasn't your fault. We had no way of knowing that the Raikage would betray us or about Kabuto's plan to use our dead loved ones against us. Even still, Gaara protested. Gaara, we both made mistakes in the past. Let's use this new one my parents gave us to make things right, okay? Naruto grinned at him. We'll get stronger working together this time. The auburn-haired boy was quiet before nodding in agreement. He offered Naruto a small smile. You're right, Gaara nodded. We'll be prepared this time. And I'm glad Utakata and the Mizukage were so willing to help you. So you told him of our plans then? Kakashi questioned, turning towards Naruto. Naruto-sama and I have already explained everything Gaara-san needs to know. We have explained to him everything that has happened up to this point. Yujiro answered, smiling at the copy nin. Your plans for the future are sound, but things are susceptible to change or turn against our favor. I hope you keep that in mind. Gaara warned Naruto. I know, Naruto sighed, but that doesn't mean we can't be optimistic about it. HMPH, we'll see how things turn out tomorrow, Gaara said, thinking of tomorrow's exams and what Naruto told him and what the group had kept from Anko. They didn't tell her all of their plans. I'll be ready, I won't let you down. I'm counting on it, Naruto grinned. Even if this fails, we've still got another chance during the finals. We'll get both of them, Orochimaru and Kabuto. The group all nodded resolutely, determined to succeed during the exams tomorrow. Kakashi let out a small yawn as he got up. I think it's time to turn in for the night. Kakashi smiled. You four should get some rest as well. It's a big day tomorrow. Yeah, see you tomorrow, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto grinned. The copy nin gave the group of teens a lazy wave before going out the door. I suppose I should get going as well, Gaara said as he got up. Hey, why don't you sleep over? Naruto offered, smiling at the boy. No offense, but it's not like your team would go looking for you anytime soon. None taken, Gaara said, knowing that everyone from Suna was petrified of him. He'd change that soon enough. But I'll have to, Gaara clutched his head and sank to the floor. Naruto immediately rushed to his side and helped him up. Gaara-san, What's wrong? Haku inquired, grabbing his other side and helping Naruto hoist him up. Ah, it's the Aikibi, Gaara groaned, making Naruto's eyes widen. He's quite distraught about future events and is giving me quite the headache. I don't think I'll be getting any sleep tonight. Though that's a given when being the host of that stupid raccoon. Naruto gave Gaara a sympathetic look before a light went off in his head. He smiled and gestured to his dresser. Hey, Yujiro, grab the Forbidden Arts scroll, will you? Gaara steadied himself as Naruto and Haku let go of him. Yujiro opened the dresser and handed the scroll over to her master, who quickly scanned its contents until he came across a particular seal. He smiled and showed it to Gaara. The boy's eyes widened when Naruto presented it to him. This is. It'll stabilize your seal and keep that tanuki from bothering you. Naruto grinned, pointing to the seal. It might take a while to make, but if you want me to, I could always. Thank you. Naruto grinned happily when Gaara gave him a genuine smile. If it isn't too much trouble, I'd appreciate it. Gaara smiled. Thank you, Naruto. I'll try to have it done before the finals start. Naruto grinned. Yujiro and Haku also gave the Aikibi container warm smiles. What are friends for, right? Gaara just smiled at him. He was extremely lucky to have such a great person as his friend. Thanks to Naruto, he may finally get to sleep in a few nights. He'd do his best not to let his fellow Jinchuriki down a second time. And Naruto would make sure to do the same for Gaara. XXXXX. So, are you all ready? Kakashi addressed his 3 students, smiling at them underneath his mask. He had escorted them to the building where they would be taking the exams. The genin in front of him smiled and nodded confidently. We'll do our best, sensei. Sakura smiled at their teacher. We'll smoke the competition. Naruto grinned confidently. Those other genin won't stand a chance. We'll win, Sasuke added, flashing the jonin his trademark smirk. Kakashi nodded at all of them. They had all improved vastly compared to how they were in the past. Because of his knowledge of the past, Kakashi was able to correct his mistakes. He was finally able to become a good sensei who looked out for each of his precious students. Just like Minato sensei, Kakashi thought fondly. Kakashi surprised all of them when he embraced his students. The copy nin chuckled at their individual reactions. Naruto and Sakura were hugging him back with gleeful expressions while Sasuke was trying his best to hide his happy expression with an annoyed one. He made it seem like he wanted to get away, but made no real effort to do so. I'm proud of you 3. Kakashi smiled, releasing all of them. Good luck in the exams. His students nodded and entered the building. Naruto was hit with a wave of nostalgia as he and his teammates walked through the hallway. Even if terrible things did happen during the exams, I was still pretty excited about entering them. Naruto thought with a grin as he remembered how things had been in the past. He'd admit, he still felt excited despite his knowledge of the future. Maybe he'd actually end up becoming a Chunin this time. Ha, what a loser. Seriously, why is someone like you in the exams? Naruto noticed with raised eyebrows that many ninja were crowded around the entrance to get into the exam room where they would take the first test. The blonde suddenly remembered this scene. He smiled excitedly as pushed his way through the crowd, Sakura and Sasuke following after him quickly. When they reached the front of the crowd, Naruto noticed 2 boys were beating up some kid in a green jumpsuit while a girl wearing a pink Chinese vest stood away with a worried expression on her face. Lee and Tenten, Naruto said softly, smiling happily at the 2 of them. He also noticed Neji standing off to the side a bit, leaning against the wall. TCH, what a joke, the boy with spiky hair said as he punched Lee. The boy fell backwards and was helped up by Tenten. I can't imagine the rest being any better than this kid, the other one with longer hair said. He turned his attention to the mass of genin around them. You all should just go home now. Katetsu and Izumo, Naruto mumbled to himself, recognizing the 2 even though they were disguised. They were friends of Asuma and Shikamaru in the future if he remembered correctly. Weren't they also usually the ones that guarded the Konoha gates? Hey, drop the genjutsu. Naruto blinked when he noticed Sasuke had stepped forward. The Uchiha was glaring at the 2 boys who gave him lazy looks. The one with spiky hair snickered as he took notice of the boy's active Sharingan. So, you figured it out, huh? Katetsu chuckled. I'm glad at least one of you figured it out. Izumo smirked, dropping the jutsu so that the room number changed back to normal. Hey, that's the room we're supposed to go in. They told us it was the wrong room. They tricked us. Naruto ignored the outbursts of the other genin and walked over to Tenten, who was lightly scolding a roughed-up Rock Lee who kept on insisting he was fine. The two turned their attention towards the blonde as he approached them with a smile. "Yo, bushy brow, you okay?" Naruto asked the two of them. "Ah, yes, I am quite alright," Lee replied, frowning a bit at the nickname. Naruto chuckled a bit as he smiled at his old friend. He'd get used to it eventually. Who are you?" Tenten asked, arching an eyebrow at him. "Oh, right, I'm Naruto Uzumaki from Team 7. Naruto grinned. He had to make good impressions now, so he figured it was fine to put his knowledge of his old friends to use. "You're Tenten, right?" How did you know?" the girl asked, surprised that a complete stranger knew her. "I had heard that you were the best female shinobi in the year before me." Naruto grinned. "You were really good with tools and weapons apparently. Can you use a sword?" "It's not my preferred weapon, but yes, I know the basics." Tenten nodded. "That's so cool." Naruto grinned at her in excitement. "I'm actually trying to learn how to use a sword right now. Maybe you could give me some tips. If you're the expert I heard of, then you'll be a great teacher." "Oh, hey. Tenten stuck her tongue out as she smiled embarrassedly at Naruto. "I still got a lot to learn and I don't think I'm an expert, but it's flattering to hear someone say so. I could spare the time to teach you a few tricks, I guess." "I'll hold you to that then." Naruto grinned. He turned towards Lee. "So, what's your name?" You've heard of Tenten, but not me." "How is that possible?" the boy asked questioningly. He was bashed over the head by his female teammate. "Don't say such hurtful things." Tenten smiled, still giddy at Naruto's high opinion of her. "People will hear many things about me. Just remember how my legend started, Lee." Sorry." Lee quickly stammered out an apology before saluting Naruto. "I am Konoha's shining fighter, Rock Lee. It is a pleasure to meet you, Naruto-san." "Likewise, bushy brow." Naruto grinned. Naruto sighed when Lee looked a little more than annoyed by that. He was already on Tenten's good side, but how could he get on Lee's? "Stop calling him by his nickname, maybe." "No, unacceptable." Naruto mumbled to himself, earning confused from Lee and Tenten. Naruto grimaced when an idea came to him. It would no doubt put him in Lee's good graces, but he didn't know if he could bring himself to do it. It was such a terrible thing to do. Could he really go through with such a thing? It's for the future, Naruto thought resolutely. He had to form strong bonds with his friends early on. Naruto faced Lee and took a deep breath. "I like your jumpsuit." Tenten's jaw dropped. From his position, Neji made a choking noise. Lee stood stock still, gasping lightly at Naruto's words. The blonde shuddered a bit after he finished his sentence. I feel sick." Naruto winced in his mind. Naruto blinked when he suddenly felt someone grasp his hands. The boy's eyebrow twitched when he was met with Lee's crying face. Tears of joy were streaming down from his eyes. "Naruto-kun, not once has anyone ever said such a thing to me," Lee cried passionately. "It fills me with more joy than I can even begin to describe." "Why did you change the honorific?" Naruto asked tentatively. "Naruto-kun, I will consider you my closest friend and rival from this day forth." Lee wept. "No, you shall be my brother and rival." Cool. Let us spend our youthful days together as passionately as we can from this day forward." Lee cried, suddenly embracing the boy much to Naruto and Tenten's surprise and disgust. "My friend, Naruto-kun." "Gross, man," Naruto shouted, shoving the boy off of him. "If you want to be friends that's fine, but don't ask for anything more than that." He had made a mistake. A terrible mistake. Naruto knew that now. "What are you doing over here?" Naruto and Team Guy turned around to see Sasuke and Sakura staring at their blonde teammate with mixed expressions on their faces. "Hey, Naruto, what were you and that kid with the bushy brows doing just now?" Sakura asked slowly. "Never mind that," Naruto cut in shortly, disgusted with himself. He glanced towards the door where the genin were making their way inside. "What happened to those two by the door?" "They left. They were a lot stronger than they let on," Sasuke said, narrowing his eyes a bit. He shook his head. "It doesn't matter now. They're gone, so we should get going too." "Yeah," Naruto nodded and followed after his teammates. "Hold it." Team 7 blinked when Lee suddenly jumped in front of them and pointed a menacing finger in Sasuke's direction. "Are you the one called Uchiha Sasuke?" Lee inquired. "That's me," Sasuke answered unsurely as Lee struck an awkward pose. He glanced towards Tenten and Neji before turning to Naruto. "Dobi, are these your friends?" Yeah, Naruto answered, smiling at Lee and Tenten, who smiled back. Neji remained indifferent. He gestured to Team Guy. Care to introduce yourselves? Name's Tenten. The female of the team answered, smiling at Team 7. The goofy guy over there is Lee, and the quiet one behind me is Neji. Pleased to meet you. Sakura smiled, ignoring Lee's whines about Tenten not introducing him properly. I'm Sakura Haruno. Sasuke-kun, are you going to introduce yourself too? Sakura blinked when she noticed the Uchiha's attention was on the boy leaning against the wall. A Hyuga, Sasuke murmured to himself, glaring a little at the prodigy. Neji glared back at him with a small smirk. Naruto groaned. The old Neji had also liked to look down on Sasuke because he felt the Hyuga's eyes were superior. He really hoped that he'd get the chance to knock some sense into the Hyuga boy sometime soon. The Uchiha, I've heard many things about you, Neji said, staring at the black-haired boy. You won't disappoint me during the exams, will you? Of course not, Sasuke replied, still glaring at the boy. Excuse me. Everyone turned back towards Lee when he asked for their attention. The boy immediately struck another pose when everyone was looking at him. He pointed at Sasuke again. I, Rock Lee, have chosen you, Sasuke Uchiha, to be my rival. Lee declared, I challenge you to a battle. HMPH, you think you can win? Sasuke asked, smirking confidently at the boy. You're a fool. So you accept then? Lee asked, giving the boy a serious look. We've got time to kill, right? Sasuke asked his teammates who didn't respond. He turned back towards Lee. I don't mind entertaining you for a bit. Good, Lee shouted, making both teams wince at the volume of his voice. And if I win? He glanced at Sakura with pink cheeks, making the girl arch an eyebrow at him. What? Sakura asked. The beautiful Sakura-chan has to go on a date with me. Hell no. Naruto and Sasuke looked on with sympathetic expressions as Sakura proceeded to beat the exuberant ninja to a bloody pulp. Both were aware of the girl's strength and wrath, and while personally Naruto thought Sakura had loosened up a bit more, as had Sasuke, there was no way Lee could ask her out without being hit. Well, we'll just have a match ourselves. The winner is the winner and the loser, Lee said after Sakura had finished beating him. His right eye and cheek looked swollen. But not here. I know of a perfect location for which we may do battle. Lead the way. Sasuke smirked as he and Sakura followed Lee down the hallway. Tenten, Neji, and Naruto all looked after them. Oh brother, Tenten sighed before running after them. She didn't want Lee to get into trouble. Naruto smiled and turned towards Neji, who regarded him with a cold stare. They were the only remaining genin still in the hallway. We didn't get to talk much, did we? Naruto offered, still smiling. I don't think we've seen each other since that night in front of the Hyuga compound a few months back. I didn't want to see you. So cold. Neji just glared at Naruto, who continued to grin. Truth was, Naruto was having a hard time being polite to Neji when he acted like such an ass. Still, it would be nice if he could befriend Neji before the Chunin exam finals. I heard from Hinata-sama that you asked her to train you. Neji said abruptly. Yeah, I did, Naruto replied. What of it? Naruto frowned when Neji started chuckling to himself. I don't see why you would do something so foolish. Neji chuckled, shaking his head. What could Hinata-sama possibly teach you? I needed help with chakra control and you Hyugas are good at that. I wanted her to help me. Naruto replied coolly. Is that the only reason? She's my friend and I wanted to find a way to spend time together with her. Naruto said. He smiled as he thought of the Hyuga heiress. Both of us have come a long way by training together. She's very talented. Ha. Naruto glared at Neji. Hinata-sama has always been a weakling. Neji said coldly, glaring at the blonde. From the moment she was born her fate was to be a weakling, just how I was destined to be subjected to the limitations of those in the lower branch family of the Hyuga clan. No matter how much she trains, she will always remain a weakling. That is her destiny. That is a fate she cannot chance. Is that what you think? Naruto growled, angry at all this, destiny, and fate, talk Neji was spouting. It's not like he didn't expect it, but Neji's words had a different effect than they had in the past. Naruto felt like this fate and destiny philosophy was not only an insult to Hinata, but to himself as well. For someone who had been given a chance to do things over, having Neji tell him that fate was already decided was like saying he couldn't change the future. If fate couldn't be changed, then Madara would definitely win again. But Naruto knew that wasn't true. Fate could be changed. You're wrong, Naruto said fiercely, surprising Neji with the intensity his voice had. I know from experience that fate can be changed. I've already made lots of changes to my destiny, so don't say that things can't be changed. What is this nonsense? Neji said, glaring at Naruto. You are the same, a weakling. You and Hinata will remain that way for the rest of your lives. Even if you know she's been training with me, you obviously don't know how much she's progressed. Naruto growled. She's gotten strong. Doubtful. Neji smirked. Hinata-sama is too soft and kind to be a ninja. She cannot change her fate. Won't you be surprised when she proves you wrong, Naruto muttered. And she even wants to become head of the clan one day. What a joke. Naruto stiffened and clenched his fists. What a stupid delusion. It is a dream that a weakling like her will never accomplish. Neji's eyes widened when Naruto grabbed his collar. Neji's Byakugan flared as he glared at Naruto. The blonde glared right back. Hey, why don't we have match right now? Naruto challenged. Let's see if I'm as weak as you say I am. I'll show you just how deluded you are, Neji. HMPH. Foolishness. Neji smirked as he grasped Naruto's wrist. Am I interrupting something? Both boys turned to see Tenten standing there with an uncomfortable expression. Naruto let go of Neji while he gave his teammate an inquiring look. Tenten, what's wrong? Neji asked. The fight is getting a little more intense than I thought. Tenten sighed. I figured you would be the only one who'd be able to calm Lee down. That idiot. Neji sighed. Let's get moving before he does something stupid. Neji glared at Naruto, who glared right back. We'll finish this later, Uzumaki. Yeah, Naruto nodded. Both of them were led down the hallway to an open room. Naruto remembered this scene. Lee stood on one side of the room looking serious, yet confident. Sasuke was on the opposite end, worn out and tired. Naruto, Tenten, and Neji stepped next to Sakura, who was watching the fight with a worried expression on her face. How's Sasuke-tem holding up? Naruto asked his teammate, even though he already knew the answer. He hasn't even gotten one hit in. Sakura said in astonishment. That Lee guy is really fast. And since he uses taijutsu only, the Sharingan is useless. Well, it's not like his eyes can save him from everything. Naruto commented as Lee kicked Sasuke up in the air. Ouch. Hey, hold on, Lee's not going to. Tenten gasped when she realized what technique he was planning to use. That idiot. Neji glared as he moved to intercept the two ninja who were in the air. Naruto frowned as Neji moved into action. Even if Sasuke had improved, he still couldn't beat Lee with his speed yet. He made a move to help Neji stop Lee. Not yet. Sasuke's determined cry stopped Naruto in his tracks. He glanced upwards to see Sasuke run through a series of hand seals for one of his fire jutsu techniques. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Sasuke unleashed a giant fireball from his mouth up towards the ceiling. Lee thought this was foolish since Sasuke wouldn't be able to hit him with the attack while facing upwards, but that wasn't the intent. The blast propelled Sasuke backwards with enough force to crash into Lee, who had been directly under him. Both fell down to the floor, Lee landing on the hardwood floor while Sasuke used his body as a cushion. The Uchiha immediately got away before Lee had time to recover. Naruto smiled. Resourceful guy. Naruto grinned. Sasuke had found a way to stop Lee's technique. That was something that hadn't happened before. Good move, but I'm not done yet, Lee announced as he slowly got back up. He raised his fists. This battle is just getting started. No, this is where the battle ends. Team 7 and Team Guy blinked when a voice resounded within the room. Naruto, Tenten, and Neji paled when they recognized the voice. Dynamic entry. Might Guy flew in and delivered a hard kick to Lee's face, sending him flying across the room. While everyone else in the room was stunned at the man's action and entry, Naruto just chuckled at the jumpsuit-wearing sensei. Is it weird that I missed this too? Naruto asked himself. Lee, Guy boomed. What technique were you going to use just now? Didn't I tell you that technique was forbidden? I'm sorry, Guy-sensei. It's just, Lee stammered, trying to come up with an excuse. He turned towards his teammates. Tenten, Neji. It's all his fault, Neji answered bluntly. He started it, Tenten nodded. So cruel. Ignoring Team Guy's shenanigans for the time being, Naruto made his way over to Sasuke. Sakura was already healing the wounds Lee had inflicted on him. Naruto grinned at his friend. Pretty clever move, Naruto commented, making the Uchiha turn towards him. You stopped his technique by repelling it with your own in a way. I still would have lost, Sasuke stated, turning his head away. If it had gone longer, I would have lost. How is he someone like that so strong? Looks at his hands, Naruto said, smiling at his old friend as they watched him rewrap his hand bandages while he was being yelled at. Lee is what one would call a genius of hard work. He wasn't born with a Kekkei Genkai to make him stand out, and it looks like taijutsu is all that's available to him. He probably trained hard every day to get to that strong. Naruto gave Sasuke a serious look. Your bloodline can't protect you from everything, you know. To his surprise, Sasuke smiled in response. Naruto blinked disbelievingly. He expected the Uchiha to glare at him and disregard his praise towards Lee. What was with that look? You're right, Sasuke shrugged, shocking Naruto yet again. There are some people I just can't beat right now. There are people stronger than me right now. The blonde stared at his friend like he had two heads. This acknowledgement towards another person's skills was something Naruto had never expected from the Uchiha. To openly admit someone was stronger than him and hold no grudge was something Sasuke would have never done. So why was he? It's like you said, Naruto. Sasuke went on, smiling slightly at his friend. I'm not strong just because I'm an Uchiha. Just because I have the Sharingan doesn't mean I'll win every one of my battles. Losing is just something I'll have to accept. I can find strength in my defeats and grow stronger because of it. The boy smirked at the stupefied blonde. I'll have to train harder from now on so that when I have a rematch with that jumpsuit-wearing freak I won't get defeated so easily. I have to work hard so I won't lose to him. Naruto felt a smile form on his lips. Finally, Sasuke was starting to lose that Uchiha arrogance and demand to be the strongest. And so I won't lose to you either. Naruto grinned happily at his friend who smirked back. Sakura just smiled, happy that Sasuke had taken his supposed defeat so well. Naruto chuckled a bit and looked up. I guess things are turning out for the better after all. He frowned when something red on the ceiling caught his attention. We should get going now, Naruto told his team, suddenly sounding very serious. What's the hurry? Sasuke asked, arching his eyebrow at his friend. Less talking, more walking, Naruto replied shortly as he pushed Sasuke and Sakura up the stairs and down the hall. Sakura hit him a couple of times as he pushed them. Why are you being so pushy all of a sudden? The girl demanded. Back in the room, Guy and Lee had just got done with their passionate hugging ritual while Tenten and Neji did their best to ignore them. Suddenly, a peculiar scent invaded their nostrils. Guy-sensei, do you smell that? Indeed I do, Lee, Guy said slowly, sniffing the air again. Is something burning? The four of them looked up in panic to see that the ceiling was starting to catch fire. How did that happen? It was Sasuke's fireball, that idiot. Someone go get some water. XXXXX. Back in front of the door to the entrance room and far away from the fire Sasuke had unintentionally started, Team 7 were prepping themselves. Once they passed through that door, there was no turning back. The three of them nodded to each other and pushed through the door. The ramblings and loud voices of the other ninja in the room immediately sounded in their ears. Wow, there sure are a lot of people here, Sakura murmured in amazement. Naruto put a reassuring hand on Sakura's shoulder to help with her nervousness. Sasuke tried to look stoic, but even Naruto could tell he was surprised by the amount of people who were taking part in the exam. It didn't come as much of a surprise to him though. I've never seen so many ninja before, Sakura said a little bit. She glanced around to analyze the competition. Some of these guys look pretty tough. But we're tougher, Naruto grinned at his teammates. They smiled back. They were ready, he was confident this time. Yo, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura. The three mentioned Genin smiled and turned towards their friends who were approaching them. Kiba laughed and waved at them with Shino and Hinata following quietly behind him. Akamaru was wagging his tail at his master's heels. Kiba bumped fists with Naruto and Sasuke while Hinata and Sakura bowed towards each other in greeting. Shino silently nodded to Team 7 to show his acknowledgement. It's good to see you three here, Shino said tonelessly to his friends. Likewise, Naruto grinned back at him. Ha, it's only to be expected. Kiba chuckled while Akamaru barked in agreement. We're the best candidates here. Don't think we'll be losing to you guys though. The sparring sessions their senseis had set up between the two teams had set up a friendly rivalry between the six. Of course, all six of them were good friends as well. Good luck during the Chunin exams. Hinata smiled timidly, blushing when Naruto grinned at her. Maybe if we're lucky we'll all end up becoming Chunin. Naruto smiled at the blushing Hyuga. Her stuttering had totally disappeared. His first instinct when he saw her was to walk up and hug her, but that would embarrass her and lead to lots of teasing on Kiba and Sasuke's part. Not that he minded, but Hinata wouldn't like it. Still, that didn't mean he couldn't openly talk to her. Looks like we made it into the exams after all. Naruto grinned at the Hyuga heiress. He winked at her. Go easy on me if we end up fighting each other, okay? I don't want that. Hinata smiling, giggling lightly at the blonde-haired boy. Sasuke-kun. The Uchiha grunted when Ino practically jumped on his back and hugged him tightly. Sakura looked more than a little peeved by this, but simply glared at her rival. She wouldn't trouble Sasuke by having a fangirl fight in the middle of the room. Instead, she quickly tore Ino away from Sasuke with surprising strength. The pink-haired girl ignored the girl's insults and smiled with the others at Ino's other teammates who were approaching. Hi, Shikamaru, Choji, Sakura greeted. Everyone else waved at them too. Shikamaru just waved lazily in response while Choji smiled while stuffing his face with a bag of potato chips. Naruto had also made sure to get close to Team 10, and they would often meet with the Ino-Shika-Cho group often and go out to eat together. Because of this, the two teams also had a good relationship. Man, this is all too troublesome for me, Shikamaru whined, overlooking the other genin in the room. I can't believe Asuma-sensei signed me up for this. All these guys could probably beat me. Come on, Shikamaru, it's not that bad, Choji smiled. At least we're all together, right? Yeah, Kiba agreed. The rookie 9 made it in. We'll totally smoke the competition, dudes. Even if we'll probably be fighting against each other at some point. Shikamaru shrugged. Everyone does look pretty strong though. Ino commented as she was checking out the crowd. There's a lot of foreign ninja here. Everyone nodded in agreement. Most of the genin in the room looked pretty dangerous. While everyone glanced at the unfamiliar faces, Naruto was trying to spot those he could remember. He saw the rain ninja with the gas masks he and his team had run into during the exams and again in the tea country. He also noticed with some disdain that Dosu, Zaku, and Kin were standing near the back. Orochimaru's lackeys. After looking around a bit more, he spotted Gaara along with Temari and Kankuro standing not too far away from them. When no one was looking, the two Jinchuriki quickly nodded towards each other in greeting, reminding themselves of what was at stake during this time. Naruto scanned the crowd again. He still had yet to find that person. He had seen the team from sound, so where the hell was? Hello, there. Rookie 9 turned to see a ninja with gray hair and glasses giving them a friendly smile. Two others with different glasses but the same outfit stood a bit behind him. Naruto was the only one out of the group not to return the smile. Kabuto. Who the hell are you? Kiba asked, arching an eyebrow at the fake Konoha. Ah, forgive me for not introducing myself. My name is Kabuto, the man greeted with that deceiving smile of his. My companions here are Yoroi and Masumi. Both men nodded at the younger genin. I assume that this is your first time taking the Chunin exams. He, does it really seem that obvious? Ino asked sheepishly. I didn't think we stood out that much. Hinata commented lightly. Ah, well, I've taken this exam many times so I always notice new faces. Kabuto smiled charmingly at the girls. Naruto's glare intensified. Fucking liar. It would be so easy to whip out a kunai and stab that cunning, deceitful bastard in the face. So tempting to charge up a Rasengan and turn the lying prick into paste. Naruto didn't care if that would get him suspended from the exams or arrested, but if he took out Kabuto when he was right in front of him. Did I do something wrong? Naruto snapped out of his thoughts when he noticed Kabuto standing in front of him. He grinned sheepishly as he scratched his cheek. Sorry, I noticed that you were glaring at me just now. Naruto took a deep breath to calm down. No, he couldn't act now in front of everyone despite how much he wanted to kill the guy. Orochimaru was the main target, and killing his right-hand man would not help him kill the Snake Sannin. He couldn't alert him. Besides, he already made precautions with Kakashi and Yujiro when they had made plans for the Chunin exams. The bastard would get his during the second stage of the exams. For now, Naruto had to bear his presence and pull up the sides of his mouth for a smile. Sorry if it seemed that way. I'm just a little on edge. Naruto grinned. It's our first time taking the exams. You said you've taken it before. A couple times, Kabuto admitted, even though it was a lie. It's not as bad as it seems. Though, I can never seem to get to the finals. He's forfeit if he ever got to that point anyway. But since you're all new, I've decided to share some information with you that might help. Kabuto grinned at the rookie 9 as he pulled out his deck of information cards. Just give me the name of anyone and I'll tell you what I know about them. It might help if you ever end up facing against them during the exams. Do you have information on Rock Lee and Gaara from Suna? Sasuke asked, stepping forward. I had lost to the former and was warned by the latter yesterday. I think I may fight them again soon. Very well, Sasuke-kun. Kabuto smiled as he took out 2 cards from the deck. While Kabuto explained his cards to the rest of the rookie 9, Naruto ignored him and tried to put a leash on his emotions. Having someone who had caused so much suffering in his past life right in front of him was extremely frustrating, especially when he couldn't afford to kill him at the moment. He had plans to kill Kabuto and Orochimaru, but he didn't think waiting would be so hard. He was surprised when he found his hand inside his kunai pouch, fingering one of the sharp weapons. Then Naruto noticed Dosu approaching from the side. Naruto smirked a bit, he needed to vent anyway. Just as Dosu was about to interrupt Kabuto and his friends, Naruto grabbed his shoulder and focused his killing intent towards the boy. Hey, save the fighting for the exams. Naruto growled menacingly at the sound ninja. The bandaged ninja looked a bit shaken by the blonde's intervention, but immediately brushed him off. After glaring at Naruto a bit, the boy returned to his teammates at the opposite side of the room. Naruto sighed and smiled in satisfaction after blowing off some steam. Haku had taught him how to channel his killing intent during one of their lessons, something Zabuza had taught to her. It was really their thing, but she admitted it was a great way to relieve stress or intimidate someone. Everyone, may I have your attention? Every genin in the room turned towards the voice which belonged to Ibiki Morino. The scarred exam proctor overlooked the mass of exam participants with a critical. His voice boomed as he spoke. I am Ibiki Morino, and I'll be your proctor for the first part of the exams. The man announced. He snapped his fingers as the doors behind him opened. He grinned at the crowd of genin. Now, why don't you all step inside so we can get the first test started? Naruto grinned in anticipation and anxiety for what was to come. An encouraging smile from his teammates and a confident nod from Gaara somewhere in the crowd helped chase away some of his worries. His expression was one of determination as he followed his teammates and the other genin into the next room. It was official. The Chunin exams had begun. The hour was almost up, and Ibiki should be planning to announce the 10th question of the test pretty soon. Or at least that's what Naruto hoped. The Jinchuriki let out a shaky sigh and leaned back in his chair. His mixed emotions had started bothering him the moment the test started. Of course, it wasn't because of Ibiki's test that he felt this way. Since he already knew about the interrogation experts' love psychological warfare and what the true objective of the exam was, he hadn't fretted over the test like he had in the past. Naruto had actually managed to answer a few questions, but only because he remembered the questions by some miracle and researched beforehand. Haku and Yujiro had forced him to. It was crucial that he got through the first exam, and one could never be too careful. If not for that, his quiz would have been just as blank as before. But no, what made Naruto anxious was the amount of time the test seemed to be taking. The test only lasted an hour, but to him it felt like days. It was the tension he felt for the second phase of the Chunin exams that had him feeling this way. Naruto tapped his pencil against the test irritably as he glanced at the clock again. Naruto clenched his hand as his emotions influenced him. He had reassured himself many times over that things would be okay, but this feeling wouldn't leave him. It started when he had seen Kabuto in the waiting room. He almost regretted holding himself back that time as the mental picture of him pounding the four-eyed bastard into paste was very appealing to him now. But he had to wait for Orochimaru. Right now, Kabuto was the small fry. Orochimaru was the biggest threat here, and he had to be stopped this time. Nervous. Ibiki's voice got the blonde's attention. Naruto frowned at the man who raised an eyebrow at him. Just a few personal things I have to take care of soon. Naruto glowered, unknowingly venting his frustration and impatience at the man. Your test hasn't gotten me worried in the least since I already know what you're trying to do. Ibiki held a look of surprise for a moment before he switched back to his stoic expression. His eyes narrowed at the boy. Think you've figured it out, have you? Yeah, but I wouldn't want to spoil things for the rest of the class. Naruto retorted, you still need to narrow down the competition anyway. HMPH. Ibiki grunted and turned away from the boy and directed his attention towards the class. I will now be announcing the 10th question. The remaining students all perked up at this and put their pencils down. Many of the genin cells had already been eliminated due to their clumsy cheating. Naruto bit his lip as more thoughts raced through his head. They had everything ready, right? Haku and Anko had already set traps within the forest, right? He had told them which genin Orochimaru would be disguised as, right? Gaara would follow through with the plan, right? Should he have gotten more help? Maybe he should have told the Sandame. Hell, maybe he should have gotten Kakashi to grab Yamato or something. Would everything? Naruto stiffened when he felt a something soft on his hand. He turned towards the girl next to him who had gently placed her hand on top of his in a gesture of comfort. Hinata gazed at Naruto worriedly. Are you okay? The Hyuga heiress mouthed to him quietly. Naruto took a deep breath and calmed down. He gave the girl a reassuring smile in response. He was glad Hinata ended up sitting next to him just like last time. This gesture of hers had somehow cleared his head and calmed him down. I'm fine, Naruto mouthed back, smiling gratefully at the girl. Hinata blushed and took her hand back, slightly embarrassed by what she had done. Naruto turned his attention back to Ibiki who had just gotten done explaining the question. He shouldn't worry about this now. A true shinobi knows never to let his emotions get the better of him, and that's what Naruto had allowed. He was confident in their plans and had faith in his friend's support. He would wait until the right moment before acting. Though if he saw Kabuto or Orochimaru again, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to keep his emotions in check. That's stupid, Kiba's voice rang out, snapping Naruto out of his thoughts. Why the hell would any of us reject the question? If you want to take the question then by all means, go ahead and do so. Ibiki replied, a sadistic smile making its way onto his face. But know that if you fail to answer this question correctly. Ibiki paused. All the genin leaned forward in their seats, waiting for the interrogator to finish his sentence. You will not be able to take the Chunin exams ever again. All of the genin voiced their outrage at this, but Ibiki didn't show any of them sympathy. He just stared at the class of young ninja, wondering who would stick around and who would give up. A few more genin cells decided to quit until the competition had been narrowed down to exactly how Naruto remembered. When all Ibiki did was stand there, waiting to see if anyone else was going to throw in the towel, Naruto thought it would be a good time to raise his hand. He was far too impatient for this to drag on any longer than it had to. You're quitting as well? Ibiki asked, arching an eyebrow at the blonde. Hadn't he claimed to have figured out the secret to his test? No, I told you before, I have personal things I've got to take care of and this test is taking too damn long. Naruto said sharply. He gave Ibiki a hard gaze. So I'd like to ask you to stop with this psychological bullshit and tell us the 10th question already. You've had your fun, and no one else here is going to be leaving anytime soon. Ibiki glared at the boy before redirecting his attention to the entire class. The kid was right about that. After the boy's small speech everyone's looks of uncertainty and worry were replaced with expressions of determination. Ibiki glanced back at Naruto again. What's your name, kid? Ibiki asked. Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage of Konohagakure. Naruto said, allowing himself a small grin. Well then, Uzumaki Naruto, looks like you and the rest of the students here all pass. What was the point of all that then? Kankuro demanded from somewhere in the back. The point of the exam was so we could test your ability to gather information and keep others around you from noticing. Ibiki replied. Those who were caught were immediately kicked out. A shinobi must use stealth and tact to acquire information he is often sent out to get. The 10th question was to test whether or not you were ready to put your life on the line for said mission. I don't see what a fake question had to do with that, Tenten commented. Oh, Ibiki remarked, unwrapping the headband that covered his head and revealed his scars to the class, earning gasps or astonished looks from most of them. Oftentimes you will be given information so valuable that it could put yourself and those close to you in great danger. However, you must be willing to risk everything to make sure that information is secured, even if you end up being tortured or killed in the process. Those who are unwilling to accept that responsibility, as in those who refused the question, cannot become true shinobi. Just as Ibiki's speech ended, a loud crash resounded in the room as Anko busted through the window and placed herself in front of the class. The majority of the class was shocked by the sudden entry. Only Naruto and Ibiki seemed unfazed. Hello scrubs, my name is Anko Mitarashi, proctor for the second phase of the exams. Anko grinned as she looked at the class. Just follow me and we'll start your second test. You broke my window, Ibiki remarked, glancing towards the shattered glass. I'll fix it later. Anko waved him off. She scanned the classroom. There's more than I'd thought there'd be. You getting soft, Ibiki. No, this was just a lucky year, Ibiki replied, glancing at Naruto before turning away from the class. Please use the door when exiting the building this time. Whatever. Come on guys, Anko called out to the class. Let's go have some fun. All the genin nervously followed the crazy woman out the door. Ibiki chuckled a bit at the woman's eccentric behavior before turning around to collect the test papers. As the students left, Ibiki glanced at the retreating back of the blonde boy from earlier. The man chuckled as he turned back to the desks. If it's someone like him, he might become the next Hokage. Ibiki chuckled. It was rare to see a boy with such a determined fire in his eyes. XXXXX. Naruto stared at the barbed wire fence that surrounded the huge trees and dark foliage that made up the Forest of Death. The 44th training ground was right in front of him, which was the setting for the second phase of the Chunin exams. A familiar sight which sent chills down his spine. This is it, Naruto thought to himself. He gulped as a feeling of tension took hold of him. Anko placed herself at one of the gates, gesturing to the forest behind her as she explained the rules of the second test. Naruto ignored her and scanned the crowd. Sakura and Sasuke stood on either side of him, and Team 8 was standing a bit behind them. Team 10 was somewhere in the center of the genin crowd, and Team Guy was near the front. While seeing his friends offered him a bit of comfort, he hadn't seen the person he was trying to find. Where is he? Naruto thought as he frantically searched the crowd with his eyes. Where is Orochimaru? Hey. Oops, pardon me. Naruto's eyes widened when he heard Sasuke's irritated grunt and familiar voice utter a small apology. Naruto turned his head and came face to face with the person who had bumped into Sasuke. Orochimaru. He may have been disguised as that Kusa girl, but Naruto knew what that stolen face was hiding underneath. Orochimaru smiled apologetically at Sasuke. Sorry, my team is up there. Didn't mean to startle you. The disguised Sannin chuckled as he shoved past the boy as immersed himself inside the crowd of genin. Naruto felt every one of his muscles tense when he had seen the man. He could feel sweat starting to roll down his forehead as his tension peaked. He had caught that predatory look in the disguised snake Sannin's eyes. One of his greatest and most hated enemies was right in front of him. His feelings were exactly the same now as when he saw Kabuto again. Naruto took a step towards the crowd until someone caught his eye. Naruto froze in place when his gaze locked with Gaara's. The two stared at each other silently, and the blonde noticed that his friend felt similar to how he was. Gaara was gripping the sleeve of his shirt tightly as his stare momentarily switched from the Kyuubi container to the snake Sannin before switching back. Both boys could see how tense the other was. But then they gave each other a slight nod and turned back towards Anko, who was just about to wrap up her explanations. Naruto took a deep breath as he calmed down. A small smirk appeared on his features. There had been a silent communication between the two Jinchuriki just now. A message they conveyed with gestures instead of words. A nod of support. Everything will be okay, I'll back you up. Naruto nodded again as he chased away the last of his worries. He felt a hand on his shoulder. He glanced backwards to see Sakura giving him a concerned look. Are you okay, Naruto? Sakura asked. You were shaking just now. Don't tell me you're scared. Sasuke taunted, smiling at the boy. Naruto just smiled back. He pounded his fist into his open palm as his eyes sparked with determination. Nah, excited, Naruto smirked. We'll definitely make it to the finals. That goes without saying. Sasuke smirked back. Sakura nodded in agreement. Naruto knew he had to be confident if he was going to fight Orochimaru. Worrying about what might happen won't change anything. Waiting until the right time came and reacting during that moment would ensure his victory. So in a nutshell, you've gotta get one Heaven Scroll and one Earth Scroll, then make it to the tower in the middle of the forest to pass the exam. Anko announced to everyone. You've got 5 days. Don't forget to sign the release forms or you won't receive your first scroll. Release forms? For what? One genin from Tokigakure asked. They state we're not liable for any injuries or deaths that will probably take place during the exams. Anko answered with a disturbingly happy tone. After that subtle warning for how dangerous the second exam might end up being, the remaining genin cells hurriedly signed their forms and received their scrolls. They would have to steal the other scroll from another genin team. The cells each positioned themselves at their respective gate, ready to jump into the forest when they received Anko's signal to start the exams. The Jonin gazed down at her watch. She smirked when the clock's arm hit its mark. Anko raised her hand. All right, the second phase of the Chunin exams starts now. The gates burst open and the ninja rushed into the forest. Anko watched as the genin disappeared into the forest. The Chunin who had helped keep an eye on the kids approached Anko as the last team departed. Anko-san, we're leaving now. Make sure you get to the tower before any of the teams do. One of the Chunin advised her. Yeah, get going already. Your work here is done. Anko said dismissively as she turned away from them. The men nodded and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Anko sighed as she impatiently tapped her foot, waiting for her helper to show up. She smiled when she saw a girl wearing an Anbu mask step out from behind a tree. Haku, where'd you go? Anko asked as the girl approached her. Sorry, I was helping Yujiro-chan get into the forest. Everything has been set up. Haku relayed to the Jonin proctor. She gestured to the woman with her hand. Follow me. Anko followed the girl to a small plain of open land. Dozens of mirrors were set in the center, forming the shape of the dome. Haku stepped into her dome of ice mirrors with Anko behind her. Each mirror reflected a different image on its surface, showing different areas of the forest of death. Some genin would occasionally pass a few mirrors. Anko crossed her arms under her breasts as she stared at the mirrors. Impressive. Anko smiled. You can actually see what's going on from inside here. That's the point. Haku smiled back. I'm surprised you don't already have something like this. Proctors aren't allowed to interfere during the test, and you've got to admit that it's one huge-ass forest. Anko replied. She sighed. So what now? We wait, Haku said as her expression turned solemn. Until your teacher reveals himself. XXXXX. So Sakura, got any plans to get a scroll? Naruto asked as Team 7 made their way through the trees. If anyone's smart they'll head towards the tower straight away. Sakura said, every team will head for the tower eventually, so it'd be best to get there then ambush a team that has an earth scroll. We'd complete the test quicker that way. Good thinking. Sasuke nodded, seeing sense in that plan. He patted his pocket which contained their heaven scroll. The only problem is getting to the tower. Do we have any idea where it is? It's in the center of the forest, right? Naruto grinned back at his teammate. So if we keep heading straight we'll get there eventually. Either that or we could find Team 8 and get them to help us find the tower. Shino or Hinata would be able to find it easily enough. Naruto, we may be friendly with them, but this is a contest. What if they have the scroll we need? Sasuke pointed out. We let them keep it and grab someone else's. Naruto said simply as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. He scrunched up his nose. Stealing from friends would leave a bad taste in my mouth. Naruto's right. I wouldn't want to fight Hinata, Kiba, or Shino if we can avoid it. Sakura agreed. Sasuke gave his two teammates with an incredulous look before giving a resigned sigh. I guess I wouldn't like that either, Sasuke admitted, remembering the drills and exercises the two teams often did together. But if we run into Ino Pig and she has the scroll we need, we should definitely take it. Sakura declared with fire in her eyes. Naruto and Sasuke both shot each other exasperated looks at the girl's behavior. As they moved through the forest, Naruto grew wary. He was afraid that any moment now Orochimaru was going to jump out and catch them by surprise. Events from the past flashed through his mind as he remembered what Orochimaru had done. His eyes moved over to Sasuke. I won't let him get my best friend this time, Naruto muttered to himself as he slowed down to a halt. Sakura and Sasuke noticed this and jumped beside him. Dobi, what's with the hold-up? We need to get to the tower, Sasuke said, a little annoyed with his teammate for stopping. It's nothing, Naruto said quietly. Truth was, he suddenly felt really uneasy. An icy pool had formed in his stomach and he became extremely uncomfortable. His muscles were tense and warning bells were going off in his head. Maybe it was tension, maybe he was being paranoid, but something in Naruto's gut told him something was wrong. Instinct was screaming to him that something dangerous was close by. Guys, be on your guard, Naruto warned them, earning surprised looks from his teammates. I think that someone might be. Naruto's eyes widened when he noticed something descending on them from above. His body reacted before his brain as he grabbed both his teammates and dived off the branch. Look out! A colossal snake crashed down on the branch Team 7 had been standing on. Naruto let go of his teammates as they landed on another branch. They all stared at the shattered branch in surprise. Was that a snake? Sakura gasped in astonishment. There are things like that in this forest, Sasuke murmured. And it's coming back, Naruto shouted. The humongous snake was coiling up the tree and closer towards the genin team. When it was close enough its massive jaws opened up and it lunged at its prey. Move it, Sasuke ordered as they jumped down to another branch, narrowly avoiding the reptile's strike. It's fast for something so large. Sasuke grunted. Can we beat it? Of course we can, Naruto yelled in determination as he made a few hand signs. About 24 shadow clones poofed into existence on the branch they were standing on. Sasuke, when I've got it pinned down you nail it in the head with a Chidori. Got it. The Narutos jumped and latched onto the snake when it came back for another attack. Pumping chakra into their arms to give them better grip and strength, they did their best to hold the massive snake in place. The snake struggled, but the combined weight and strength of the clones was enough to hold it in place on the branch long enough for Sasuke to punch lightning into its head. Chidori, Sasuke shouted as he ran forward, striking the beast right in the forehead. The snake hissed and disappeared in a puff of smoke along with the Naruto clones. That was a summon, Sakura gasped in realization. Who could've? Then Dobi's hunch was right. Someone else is here, Sasuke said, glaring up at the trees. Come on out, show yourself. Maybe we should get out of here, Sakura suggested. If this person is strong enough to use a summoning, we might be out of our league. You have no idea, Naruto thought grimly as he scanned the treetops. Come on you snake bastard, show yourself. Well, I'm surprised you disposed of my pet so easily. The trio looked above when they realized the voice came from above. A female ninja with a Kusagakure headband descended from above and landed on a branch a few feet away from them. Orochimaru had arrived. He smirked at the team of genin. Though, I would be disappointed if Itachi's brother wasn't strong enough to beat that thing, the disguised Sannin smirked at Sasuke as he said this. Naruto cursed when Orochimaru mentioned Sasuke's brother. The boy was visibly shaken by his mentioning of the older Uchiha. Itachi, you know my brother, Sasuke gasped. Where is he? Tell me. Now, didn't your mother ever teach you manners? You should make requests more politely than that. Orochimaru chuckled. Honestly, Sasuke-kun, could you try being a little more courteous? Damn it, who are you and how do you know about me and my brother? Sasuke demanded. Oh, I know all about you and your brother, Sasuke-kun, the Sannin chuckled darkly. I've taken an interest in you, you see. Don't listen to this freak, Sasuke, Naruto yelled, interrupting the snake Sannin. He's not interested in our scroll. Hell, this guy probably wasn't even supposed to be in the exams. An astute deduction, Kyuubi brat, Orochimaru smirked, earning a glare from Naruto. You're quite strong yourself. Kyuubi, what's he talking about? Sakura asked. Don't listen to him, Naruto shouted, throwing kunai at the Sannin who merely raised his own kunai to block. We'll be having none of that. Orochimaru smiled sinisterly as he wagged his finger at the group. I just want to talk to Sasuke. I'm giving the rest of you a timeout. Orochimaru snapped his fingers. Naruto's eyes widened when he noticed the shadow that suddenly loomed over them. He immediately pushed away his two teammates when he saw what was coming from behind them. Watch out. Naruto shoved Sakura and Sasuke out of the way just before the giant snake's jaws closed on him. He shut his eyes as he braced himself. This'll probably hurt. The entire branch was taken out as the snake swallowed the blonde hole before darting off into the woods and away from his astonished teammates and Orochimaru. Naruto, Sakura cried as she watched the snake slither away through the trees. She dropped to her knees. I can't believe it, he's really. No he isn't. Sakura gave Sasuke a helpless look. The Uchiha was glaring at the chuckling Sannin with an expression of rage. He looked ready to kill something. Sasuke-kun, you saw what happened to him, Sakura whimpered, shaking her head at the loss of the annoying blonde who she had come to see as friend and equal. Naruto isn't dead, Sasuke interrupted her with a confidence that he didn't know he had. One snake won't be enough to drop him like that. Stuck on denial, are we? Orochimaru taunted the duo. He shrugged his shoulders. Well, it's not like the Kyuubi brat will be missed at all. Orochimaru raised his arm to block Sasuke's kick as the black-haired boy jumped towards him. He grabbed the boy's ankle with his other hand and swung him against a tree. The Sannin held the boy up by the throat as he pressed him against the tree's base. Don't be so hasty, Sasuke-kun. Orochimaru smiled. If you start acting rashly then you won't stand a chance against me. The disguised Sannin frowned when Sasuke smirked at him. Don't be so careless then, Sasuke muttered before his skin turned brown and Orochimaru's hand sank into his flesh. What? Orochimaru mumbled before his eyes widened when he felt intense heat on his back. Shit. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Sasuke shouted as his fireball set the tree, his mud clone, and the kusan ablaze. Sasuke frowned when he noticed something jump out of the flame. If only it were that easy. Very good, Orochimaru said with a hint of approval as he patted the burned parts of his right sleeve. Part of the face he had been wearing as a mask had also been burned off. I do hope you have more to show me. HMPH, whatever. I'll have you beat before Dobi gets back here. Sasuke declared confidently as he took a fighting stance. His Sharingan flared. You still insist that the brat is alive? Orochimaru chuckled as he shook his head. Why do you worry for him so much? Who said I was worried? I couldn't care less about that idiot. Sasuke smirked, earning a look of mild surprise from his opponent. I just know he's alive. I would be insulting Naruto if I thought that something like that could finish him off so quickly. Orochimaru raised an eyebrow at this. The boy seemed to be a lot keener on trusting others than Itachi was. Sakura, Sasuke called out to his teammate, finally snapping her out of her shocked state. I need your help if I'm going to win. This person is strong. But Naruto is. He's alive, Sasuke repeated with conviction. He glared at his opponent. We'll look for him later. Right now, there's an enemy in front of us and we need to win. Sasuke's words finally got through to her as she felt confidence starting to bubble up inside her. Sasuke's sudden drive and determination helped her chase away her fear. She couldn't let him down. The girl took a fighting stance and cracked her knuckles in preparation. All right, when I find that idiot after this I'm going to hit him for making me worry like this. Sakura declared as she glared at Orochimaru. Good, Sasuke nodded, smiling at his teammate. He brought his attention back to Orochimaru. By the way, you never told us your name. Orochimaru, the snake Sannin. The man smirked as he pulled off his burned mask to reveal his true face. And today you will become mine, Sasuke-kun. XXXXX. Yoroi adjusted the Konoha headband on his forehead as he sat down on the log. Frankly, he was a little irritated about having to wear the thing, but it was all for the sake of the mission. He and Tsurugi had been picked to be a part of Kabuto's fake genin team so they could infiltrate the Chunin exams. Yoroi had been looking forward to killing a few Konoha nin when he had entered, but so far they had seen no action and he was beginning to get irritated from the lack of excitement. He glared at the pacing Tsurugi who looked quite irritable himself. Would you stop pacing already? It's really annoying. Yoroi growled at his temporary teammate. Shut up, I'll do whatever I damn well please. Tsurugi snapped as he adjusted his glasses a bit. Where the hell is Kabuto? He said he'd be back in a few minutes but it's been over an hour since he left. Maybe he went to go check up on Dosu and his team. Yoroi mused as he let out a yawn. You know, to remind them to look out for Sasuke once Orochimaru-sama is done with him. Or maybe he's out there having all the fun to himself. Tsurugi glowered, well aware of Kabuto's sadistic side. If he doesn't get back here soon we're moving on without him. Yoroi felt the need to argue, but he couldn't help agree with the elastic ninja. He was getting tired of waiting. What was stopping them from leaving? They had dispatched another genin team who came after them not too long ago and had already acquired both the Heaven and Earth scroll. Kabuto hadn't taken the scrolls with him, so what was stopping them from moving on? He'd meet them at the tower eventually anyway. He was brought out of his musings when rustling could be heard from the bushes. Yoroi immediately took a defensive stance and Tsurugi stretched his limbs a bit to loosen up. The sound ninja smirked under their masks. Looks like they'd be getting some more excitement after all. Well, looks like we got pretty lucky. Kankuro said this as he, Gaara, and Temari stepped out of the bushes. Gaara's expression was stoic as Temari smirked and lifted her massive fan off her back. And one of their teammates is missing too, Temari remarked, giving the two ninja a dark smile. Give us your scroll and maybe we'll let you off the hook. Like hell, Sergei smirked. We can take out you twerps no problem. Fine. Tsurugi's eyes widened when he heard his teammate's reply. He rounded on Yoroi with an angry look on his face. What did you say? Orochimaru-sama warned us of a group we should never engage under any circumstances. Yoroi whispered back. He glanced towards the auburn-haired boy who had a bloodthirsty look in his eyes. If we give you our scroll, will you let us go? That depends on what scroll you have. Temari smiled, putting the fan back on her back. You wouldn't happen to have a heaven scroll on right now, would you? We have it, Yoroi said, taking the heaven scroll out of his pocket and leaving the earth scroll in. Fine, you guys can leave it there and we'll just. Temari was cut off when a torrent of sand shot past her and wrapped it around Yoroi's arm. The ninja screamed as the sand ripped off his arm and coiled back to Gaara, who stared at the cursing ninja with an emotionless expression on his face. "Gee Gaara," Temari stammered. "You were actually going to let them go. I need blood," Gaara said tonelessly as he stepped forward. "You little bastard," Tsurugi shouted as he rushed forward, his limbs stretching outwards to punch their attacker. His arms only met with a wall of sand which wrapped around his arms after they had blocked his attack and snaked towards his body. He could only stretch his limbs so far, and it wasn't long before the ninja's screams were muffled by the sand that covered his body. Gaara raised his arm as the sand that cocooned the ninja rose up as well. Gaara held his hand there for a moment before clenching it in a tight fist. Sabaku Soso. Yoroi watched as Gaara's signature sand burial technique crushed his partner to death. Yoroi tried to raise himself up, but the pain from losing his arm was too great. His eyes widened when he saw sand, stained with the blood of his former teammate, circle around him. Gaara wrapped his sand around Orochimaru's remaining subordinate, mimicking his earlier actions and raising him up in a cocoon of sand. He clenched his hand and crushed the ninja inside. As the sand crawled back to Gaara, he shot a glare at Temari who stiffened under his scrutiny. "Next time you try to deprive me of my blood, I'll use you as a replacement, my dear sister." Sorry, Gaara," Temari said quietly as she lowered her gaze. "Gaara, what the hell?" Kankuro snapped, advancing on his brother and grabbing the front of his collar. Gaara gave him a deadpan expression. "That guy had the scroll we needed. He was going to give it to us and you destroyed the scroll with him." Gaara just stared at his brother as his sand opened up and deposited 2 scrolls into his hands before retreating back into his gourd. Kankuro stared at the 2 scrolls with wide eyes. "Did you mean these?" Gaara asked as he handed the heaven scroll to the puppeteer but kept the earth scroll for himself. "I understand that we need these in order to proceed to the next part of the exam. I am not so foolish as to destroy them." "All right," Kankuro muttered, releasing Gaara and stepping away from him. He was glad that his short temper hadn't provoked the Aikibi container. "Oh, and don't touch me like that again unless you're prepared to end up like that ninja," Gaara said, glaring back at Kankuro. "I would be rather tough to control puppets with one arm, wouldn't it?" "Let's just get to the tower," Kankuro said, hurriedly pushing past Gaara with Temari quickly following after him. When they were out of sight, Gaara let his emotionless mask drop and let out an exasperated sigh. He looked at the earth scroll that his siblings had neglected. His cold, bloodthirsty attitude was nothing more than an act. He was using his old persona as a front so his siblings and fellow Suna ninja wouldn't become suspicious of him. Even knowing this, he did not enjoy acting like his old self. He knew it was necessary, but that didn't mean he had to like acting like the murderer he once was. "I'm sorry, Kankuro, Temari," Gaara said quietly. "It's a bother, I know, but you'll have to put up with the me from the past for a while. When the time comes, I show you how much I've changed." "Gaara-san." Gaara looked down to see a white fox staring up at him. "Yujiro-san. Have you completed your mission?" Yujiro asked. Gaara's eyes narrowed as he turned away from the fox. He clenched his fists together and slowly shook his head. I wasn't able to kill Kabuto," Gaara said angrily. "I killed his 2 teammates, but he was gone when we fought them." "I see," Yujiro said, lowering her head. Gaara's mission during the exam had been to specifically seek out Kabuto and his team and take them out while Naruto and his team took care of Orochimaru. Gaara had been tasked with killing one of their greatest enemies, but he was unable to do so. He had expected things not to be so easy, but that didn't help alleviate his anger and disappointment. "There will be other chances," Yujiro said comfortingly. "I should go report to Naruto-sama now." "Take this with you," Gaara said, handing the earth scroll to her. "If I remember correctly, he started out with the heaven scroll. He'll need this if he's going to advance to the finals." "Thank you," Yujiro nodded before grabbing the scroll with her mouth and jumping into the bushes. Gaara waited a bit before following after his siblings. He put his emotionless mask back on when they came into his line of sight. Even if he was unable to kill Kabuto, he was glad they were able to find the scroll they needed so early on. This way, they could head straight to the tower. And so long as they didn't run into any other teams, Gaara wouldn't have to kill anyone else to keep up his image. Of course, killing Orochimaru's subordinates was satisfying in its own way. XXXXX. Orochimaru dodged the fireball Sasuke shot at him, chuckling as the boy jumped up to engage him in close combat. The Uchiha unleashed a flurry of attacks on the man, but they were either blocked or deflected. Orochimaru brought his fist back and brought it forward, slamming it into Sasuke's face. He's strong, Sasuke seethed, jumping back while clutching his face. His eyes widened when he saw that Orochimaru had disappeared. His Sharingan eyes locked onto the man. Sasuke was able to raise his arm in time to block a high kick. And fast, Sasuke thought as he blocked a couple more punches before jumping backwards to dodge a leg sweep by the Sannin. Very good, Orochimaru praised the boy, clapping his hands as he calmly approached the boy. Your taijutsu and ninjutsu are better than most your age. You're certainly more than I expected, and that makes me happy. TCH, I don't care what you think about me. Sasuke spat, taking a defensive stance and glaring at his opponent. What I want to know is why you're doing this. You're obviously not a genin, you don't want my scroll, so why are you attacking us? Haven't I already explained that? Orochimaru chuckled, extending his arm in a, come here, gesture. I've taken an interest in you, Sasuke-kun, his hand changed to a pointing gesture. I want you. I wonder exactly what it is you want from me, Sasuke muttered as a chill was sent down his spine. The man continued his casual approach towards him. Sasuke gripped the kunai he had in his hands. Now was not the time to be afraid. He'd smash this bastard into paste. He already had a plan, he just hoped that it would work. Sasuke turned and jumped into the trees. Orochimaru chuckled and arched an eyebrow as he stared after the boy. Running away. Come now, I'm not that scary, Orochimaru remarked with good humor as he followed after Sasuke. From high on a branch, Sasuke ran through a series of seals. His cheeks puffed up as he prepared to unleash his jutsu on Orochimaru who was just below him. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. HMPH, as if such a technique will stop me. Orochimaru sighed as he used a branch to hop out of the way. Try to off me a little more. Orochimaru's eyes widened in surprise when he saw the Uchiha boy coming down from on top of him. There was a ball of electricity in his hand, and Sasuke was aiming it towards him. Something like that would be bad if it hits, Orochimaru thought, lamenting over the fact that he had been a little too careless. Chidori. Orochimaru twisted and grabbed Sasuke's arm just before the lightning made contact with his stomach. The boy's eyes widened when Orochimaru delivered a hard kick to the side of his face. Sasuke threw a couple of kunai towards the man in an effort to retaliate, but the Sannin easily dodged them. Sasuke fell through the air and managed to pull himself into a landing position right before he hit a branch. The boy's legs trembled as he landed before giving way and causing him to collapse onto his hands and knees. His breathing was ragged and his Chidori had dissipated. Impressive, I'd give you a passing grade, Orochimaru complimented as he advanced towards the boy. But with your current strength, you'll never be a match for your brother. That's why I'll get stronger. It's why I'm fighting now, Sasuke said as he slowly got to his feet. I'll risk my life to kill you. If I'm unwilling to do that, then there's no way I'll be able to face my brother. Well said, Orochimaru applauded, but I think we're done for now. If you ever desire power, know that I'll give it to you. Just come seek me out. They all do eventually. Orochimaru made an attempt to move, but was surprised when he couldn't move his limbs. What? Orochimaru muttered. I don't want the power you're offering. Sasuke smirked, tugging on the string that was connected to his hands. The kunai he threw earlier, Orochimaru said in astonishment as he noticed that the string that bound him was also attached to some kunai embedded in a tree not far away. Sakura, now. Orochimaru turned his head to see the pink-haired girl jump down from above and rush towards him. The Sannin smirked at this attack. He had honestly forgotten about the girl. Why did Sasuke call for her? When the girl's fist made contact with his face, Orochimaru was surprised by the amount of force and pain the blow had. Sasuke let go of the string and let the Sannin fly. Sakura and Sasuke watched as the man tumbled down to the ground. Since his limbs were bound, he couldn't avoid the branches he crashed into. They kept watching until they heard a dull thud from the earth below. I punched as hard as I could, Sakura panted. Her legs were trembling. He was a scary opponent. Yeah, Sasuke nodded. He placed a hand on the girl's shoulder, which caused her to stiffen in surprise. Thanks, I'm glad you reacted in time when I gave you the chance we needed to win. Of course, you can always count on me, Sasuke-kun. Sakura smiled. I know, Sasuke replied, giving her a light smile. Their moment of victory was short-lived when Sasuke noticed something appear behind Sakura. His eyes widened when the human shape pulled something long and sharp out of its mouth and raised it up in the air. Look out, Sasuke shouted, grabbing Sakura and pulling her aside right as Orochimaru's Kusanagi sword came down on them. Sasuke felt blood drip on his cheek. He panicked and searched for where the blood had come from. He gasped when he saw that Sakura's shoulder had been cut open by the Sannin's sword. Her face twisted in pain as she clutched the wound. Well, that was surprising. That punch of hers was also disturbingly familiar, Orochimaru said idly as he rubbed his chin. Tsunade's face flashed inside his mind. That punch had almost broken his jaw. How are you still alive? Sasuke demanded, stepping forward to shield Sakura. He drew a kunai from his pouch. Don't be so quick to underestimate me, Sasuke-kun, Orochimaru said, shaking his head. And don't worry about the girl. I do want your team to pass, so a small scratch shouldn't affect her too much. A scratch? Sasuke seethed as he watched blood flow out of the deep gash. Why are you so interested in me? You're strong, and you have the eyes. That's all you need to know. Orochimaru chuckled. Now, why don't you come over here? I'd like to wrap things up as quickly as I can. Look out below. Orochimaru raised his sword to block the kunai and senbon needles that descended from above. He jumped back to avoid the flying kick that came from someone he knew all too well. Isn't this a surprise? Orochimaru chuckled as he gazed at the purple-haired woman who glared back at him. Hello, Anko. Sensei. Anko replied shortly. Behind her, Haku tended to Sasuke and Sakura. Are you two all right? Haku asked, quickly patching up Sakura's wound to stop the blood. Sorry we're late. Haku, Sasuke sputtered, surprised by her sudden appearance. What are you doing here? Not that he was unhappy with this sudden turn of events. He was just surprised that she and the exam proctor had found them. We've been watching you for a while, Anko proclaimed, pointing at her own teacher. A little while back we found the bodies of those Kusa ninja whose faces you stole. I knew this was your doing, sensei. How were you able to monitor the exam? I thought interference from the proctor was against the rules. Orochimaru pointed out. Fuck you, there's no way I'd miss this opportunity. Anko smirked. Screw the rules, I'm gonna get my revenge today. HMPH, we'll see. Orochimaru smiled, pointing his sword at his former student. Let's see how much you've grown then. Sasuke-kun, can you still fight? Haku asked gently. Yeah, Sasuke nodded. He glared at their opponent with mad fury. I've still gotta pay him back for hurting my teammates. Haku nodded and turned towards their opponent. She drew a few senbon needles from her back pouch. Even with the three of them fighting together, would they be able to defeat a Sannin? The mist girl could only hope for Naruto to get her as quickly as he could. XXXXX. Ugh, gross. Naruto tried to wipe the snake blood and grime off of his clothes. To think that this event had been repeated. He didn't like getting eaten by a snake a second time. Thank you Kage Bunshin, Naruto muttered, proud of his favorite technique. Naruto paced the ground impatiently as he waited for his friend to show up. He had to wait for her until he could move to save his friends. Even knowing that Anko and Haku would be there to back Sasuke and Sakura up when they needed it, he still wanted to get back to his teammates as quickly as he could. Mostly because he didn't want things to repeat themselves, but admittedly a part of him just wanted the chance to beat the snot out of that arrogant snake bastard. Damn it, Yujiro, where are you? Naruto shouted angrily. Naruto-sama. Ga. Naruto whirled around to see Yujiro had just finished transforming into her human form. His eyes widened when she smiled and held out an earth scroll to him. Naruto quickly shook off his surprise from her sudden appearance and took the scroll from her. Where'd you get this? Naruto asked curiously. A gift from Gaara-san. Yujiro replied. So then did he complete his mission? Naruto asked hopefully. As Kabuto. Naruto trailed off when he caught Yuzora's apologetic expression. Naruto clicked his tongue in frustration. If only things were so easy. At least he was able to get the Earth Scroll. Assuming Sasuke still held on to the Heaven Scroll they had started out with, they'd get another chance to take out Kabuto during the finals. But right now, his biggest concern was keeping Orochimaru from sinking his teeth into Sasuke. Literally and figuratively. Yujiro, we've gotta go. Naruto said solemnly as he looked off into the forest. He pocketed the Earth Scroll before turning towards her. Can you take me back to my teammates? I've already picked up their scent. The fox girl replied. Her ears twitched as she looked into the dense forest. We should hurry. Every second counts in a situation like this. Naruto nodded and followed after her as they jumped into the foliage. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki clenched his fists as memories of the past flooded in his mind. I'll save you this time, Sasuke. I promise. XXXXX. Orochimaru frowned as he ducked, parried, and countered the various attacks that were being thrown his way. Anko and Sasuke were locked in close combat with him while Haku threw Senbon needles at him from above. At first, things had been rather enjoyable, but their attacks were relentless and he couldn't get a good strike in with his sword when both his former student and his target were warding off his blade with kunai. He was beginning to feel the strain of battle. All of a sudden, the attacks stopped. Anko and Sasuke jumped away from the Sannin, putting a good distance between them. Orochimaru was confused by this action. Why would they suddenly stop attacking him? His question was answered when a wall of ice popped up in front of him. It reflected the image of that Haku girl. He noticed that wasn't the only one. Orochimaru stared up at the mirrors that surrounded him. Sasuke and Anko were clever with their moves, distracting him while the girl trapped him in this dome of mirrors. He smirked as he dodged the Senbon needles that were thrown his way. He quickly struck at the mirror with sword, cutting it in half with one precise strike. Haku had already transferred to another mirror. Well, now I know how you were able to keep an eye on me. Orochimaru chuckled. You probably had these placed throughout the forest. As assistant proctor to the second phase of the Chunin exams, I must keep people like you who are not part of the exams from interfering. Haku said as she threw more needles towards him. Plus, I will not forgive anyone who attacks my friends. The mirrors all reflected Haku's image, each held Senbon needles in their hands. Behind her mask, the girl's eyes flashed dangerously. Die. Right before Haku could perform her 1,000 needles technique, Orochimaru had already completed his set of hand signs. Kaden. Kasumi Enbu no Jutsu. Gas blew out from Orochimaru's mouth. Haku's eyes widened when she recognized what the technique was going to be used for. Anko, also seeing what her teacher was up to, grabbed Sasuke and made a break for it. She also grabbed the now unconscious Sakura and jumped through the forest to gain some distance. What are you doing? Sasuke demanded. We can't run. We're not running. Anko snapped. We're just putting some distance between us so that when he... Her words were cut off when they heard an explosion come from the area they had just been at. A heat wave washed over them as Anko released Sasuke and laid Sakura against a tree. That technique produces flammable gas. If we were caught in it we probably would have been blown to smithereens. But what about Haku? Sasuke's worries were alleviated when the girl dropped down beside him. She looked relatively unhurt, but some of her clothes had scorch marks. Her mask had also fallen off. I was lucky enough to have spare mirror to use to make my escape. Haku commented. Her eyes narrowed, but Orochimaru is quite the opponent. He quickly analyzed my Kekai Genkai and found its weakness. What do you mean? Sasuke asked. I cannot use ice techniques without an ample amount of moisture in the air. He dried all of it up with the fire from the explosion. Haku muttered. He's kept me from creating any more crystal ice mirrors. Even so, that's quite the ability you have. The trio's eyes narrowed at the snake Sannin who reappeared in front of them. He smiled at Haku who glared back at him. That's a very rare Kekai Genkai, and you're very talented for someone so young. Perhaps I should take you back as well, Orochimaru smiled. But now that you can't use your ice techniques, what will you do? Please, if you think you've beaten me just because I can't use my mirrors you are sorely mistaken. Haku said as she drew some Senbon needles. I am not unfamiliar with taijutsu. And don't go forgetting about us. Anko smirked as she stepped forward. Sasuke took a defensive stance behind her. Orochimaru frowned. This was beginning to become more trouble than he expected. He needed to wrap things up soon. He readied his sword as he stepped towards his opponents. Anko-san, Sasuke-san, I'll get rid of his sword. Haku announced to the two of them. When you have an opening, attack him with all your might. Got it. The two nodded in unison. Haku shot forward with a speed that surprised even Orochimaru. The Sannin hissed when he felt the needles cut into the sides of his face. Haku had thrown them. She was keeping a firm grip on them in between her fingers and using them as claws. Haku dodged as Orochimaru made a sweep with his sword. She couldn't match him in physical strength, but with her speed she could outmaneuver him. She just needed to get close enough to where she could. Her eyes widened when Orochimaru struck forward in a sword thrust, the blade extending towards her as he did so. The attack caught her off guard and she was only able to move enough so that the blade pierced her shoulder instead of her chest. Haku cried out in pain as the sword sank into her flesh. You got careless. This sword is special, you know. Orochimaru taunted. He frowned when Haku smirked. Maybe I was careless, Haku admitted as blood dripped from her mouth. She gripped the sword and pulled it out from her shoulder. But now you've given me the chance I needed. Haku blew on the sword after making a couple of one-handed signs. Orochimaru's eyes widened in shock when his blade froze. She was using the moisture from her breath to create her ice. Before he had time to react, Haku brought her elbow down on the frozen blade, shattering it to pieces since the ice had decreased its durability. Haku collapsed to her knees when the last of her energy was sapped away. The hole in her shoulder put too much strain on her body. Orochimaru would have taken advantage of the girl's weakened state had not Anko and Sasuke reacted immediately after she broke his sword. Both of the Konoha ninja had kunai in their hands. "We've got you now," Anko shouted. Orochimaru just smirked and raised his broken blade to block Sasuke's strike. The move had stopped the Uchiha long enough for him to deliver a quick but devastating blow to his gut which brought the boy to the ground. Orochimaru quickly turned and struck at Anko, catching her in the wrist with his blade and causing her to let go of the kunai. "What the hell?" Anko cursed in her mind as she dropped her weapon. Her wrist bled as the sharp part of the blade cut into her hand. Even if it's broken he can still use it. Her eyes widened when he stepped forward and plunged the sword into her abdomen. Even broken, the blade was still sharp enough to stab. Anko coughed up blood as she clutched the wound. Orochimaru laughed as he stepped away from her and towards Sasuke's unmoving form. "That was quite the battle," Orochimaru admitted as he stepped towards his prey. "And no," Haku gasped as she tried to raise herself up. Anko had pulled out the kusanagi and was bleeding quite a bit. The Jonin clenched her teeth together in frustration. "Damn it, sensei, we're not down yet," Anko said angrily. Orochimaru laughed as she coughed up more blood. "Oh, Anko, when will you learn to give up? My abandoning you should have made you realize." Orochimaru smiled cruelly at her pained expression. "I'm just not interested in you anymore." He turned back towards Sasuke's body. "But Sasuke-kun has so much to offer." Orochimaru smiled, licking his lips greedily. "His eyes shall become mine one day." His eyes widened when the boy disappeared in a puff of smoke. A log was left in place of where the Uchiha once was. "What?" Orochimaru muttered. Orochimaru raised his head when he heard a crackling sound in front of him. Sasuke was standing just a few feet away with a fully charged Chidori in his hand. The boy's breathing was ragged and the Sannin could tell he was tired. This was his last-ditch effort to defeat him. The boy yelled as he furiously charged at the snake Sannin. "Your attempts are futile," Orochimaru sighed as he made a move to dodge. He could easily avoid this technique. But to his astonishment, his legs wouldn't move. "Like I'll let you get away," Anko shouted as the snakes coming from her sleeves constricted her sensei's movements. Despite the pain in her stomach, she was using the last ounce of her strength to keep him in place so Sasuke could land a hit. "Get him now, kid." Sasuke didn't need her to tell him that. He brought his lightning blade forward, aiming it at Orochimaru's chest. "Chidori!" Sasuke roared as he struck forward. Haku and Anko watched with wide eyes as the crackling sound of the Chidori disappeared. Sasuke and Orochimaru were frozen in their positions, neither making a sound. Did he get him? Haku and Anko gasped when they saw Orochimaru's blood drip onto the branch he and Sasuke were standing on. He did it," Haku smiled. A dark laugh from Orochimaru extinguished her feeling of triumph. "Why you blocked it?" Sasuke stuttered with wide eyes. His strike had only grazed the man's shoulder. "I would have been able to dodge it completely had Anko not constricted me," Orochimaru commented, ignoring his bleeding shoulder and glanced back at his bleeding student. "Maybe if she had been at full strength she would have been strong enough to truly stop me." Damn it," Anko breathed as her snakes retracted back into her cloak. The last of her strength had already bled away. Orochimaru turned back towards Sasuke. "Now then." The boy's eyes widened when Orochimaru punched him and brought him to the ground. The man chuckled as he stepped towards the boy. "I'd like to congratulate you, Sasuke-kun. You've exceeded far beyond my expectations," Orochimaru said as his neck extended. "But you're not strong enough to beat me. When you want to get stronger, strong enough to beat your brother, leave this rabble and come seek me out. I'll give you the power you long for." Haku was watching a terrible event unfold in front of her. She screamed for her body to move, but she was unable to do anything. She watched as Orochimaru got closer and closer to Sasuke's neck. She clenched her fists and screamed in her mind. "Naruto-san, please help him." And just like that, a fierce war cry tore through the air. Orochimaru's eyes widened when he heard the roar and something cutting into the air. He turned away from Sasuke and looked towards where he had heard the sound from. His eyes widened in shock when he saw a boy with a shock of blonde hair flying through the air towards him. 2 bright, spinning balls of chakra were in each of his hands. The Kyuubi brat. Suck on my bright, blue balls, you snake bastard, Naruto roared as he brought his 2 Rasengan forward. Orochimaru had no time to avoid the boy's attack. He could do nothing as Naruto slammed the spinning balls of chakra into his chest. The sheer force of the blast was more than enough to send Orochimaru flying. The snake Sannin screamed in disbelief and anger as the blast blew him down to the ground below the trees. Sasuke's eyes widened as he looked up at his savior. Naruto quickly bent down to his level and gave him a furious look. Damn it, Tem, when a creepy snake tranny like that tries to give you a hickey, you don't just lie there and take it. Naruto shouted at the boy. He bit his lip as he looked his friend over. He didn't bite you, did he? Naruto's eyes widened when Sasuke shook his head. No, you got here just in time. Naruto didn't respond. His hands trembled as he held onto Sasuke's shoulders. It took all his effort and willpower to keep himself from jumping and shouting with joy. I did it. Naruto grinned down at Sasuke. The boy just gave him a dumb look in response. Sorry I'm late, Naruto grinned. He blinked when Sasuke gave him a small knock on the head. TCH, took you long enough to get here, Sasuke smiled back. Naruto just smiled back at him. The sense of accomplishment he felt was overwhelming. Naruto-sama. Yuzora's sharp voice brought him back to reality. His eyes narrowed as he turned towards her. The girl had a solemn look as she stared at him. I'll take care of Anko and Haku's wounds. You go and take care of Orochimaru, Yuzura said as she bent down to help Sasuke up. Right, Naruto nodded. He turned towards his friends. Haku, Anko. Only Haku raised her head. Anko had already faded into unconsciousness. The girl, despite the pain in her shoulder, smiled coyly at the blonde. You're late, Haku smiled as she leaned against the tree. I'll be quicker next time. Naruto shot back, chuckling a little bit. His gaze softened. Hey. Yes. Thank you. Naruto nodded towards her. The small gesture was enough to convey his feelings of gratitude. He knew without her and Anko, he wouldn't have been able to save Sasuke. The boy looked down to the earth below, catching sight of something below. He turned back to look at his friends one last time. Yuzura was bringing Sasuke over to Haku and Anko. The fox girl went to work healing Anko's wound while Sasuke checked on Haku and a still unconscious Sakura. Naruto smiled at them one last time before descending to the earth below. Naruto landed a few feet away from the snake Sannin. The man coughed up blood as he tried to recover himself. He had probably broken a couple of bones due to Naruto's attack. The man gave the Jinchuriki a murderous look. Why you? Orochimaru gasped as he struggled to pick himself up. He gave Naruto a menacing glare. You should be. Yeah, too bad snakes don't chew their food, Naruto said, glaring at the man. Orochimaru's eyes widened when Naruto focused him with a look so full of killing intent that his own death flashed before his eyes. The Sannin took an involuntary step backwards as Naruto's eyes sparked with a fury he had never seen. I don't care what it takes, you're gonna die here today, Naruto proclaimed as he summoned a shadow clone. He held out his hand as he concentrated his chakra to form his other signature technique. The Rasengan. Orochimaru gasped when he saw the orb form in Naruto's hand. He recognized it as the same technique the boy had hit him with earlier. How do you know that technique? I had a great teacher. Naruto smirked before frowning again. You'll pay, not just for what you attempted today, but for everything you've done. For what happened in the past, present, and the future. You'll pay. The clone disappeared when the Rasengan was completed. Naruto held it in front of him as he readied himself. The intensity of his glare made Orochimaru take another step backwards. Naruto charged forward with his Rasengan spinning brightly in his hand. Let's go, Orochimaru. With the Rasengan spinning in his hand, Naruto charged towards Orochimaru. The snake Sannin jumped back when the boy rushed towards him. Orochimaru made a few hand signs then slammed his hand on the ground. Summoning. A giant snake was summoned and rushed towards Naruto with its jaws outstretched. Naruto jumped and slammed his ball of chakra into the beast's head as he passed over it. The snake disappeared when the massive blast of chakra hit its head. Naruto wasn't done yet. He made a series of hand signs as he sailed through the air toward Orochimaru. His cheeks puffed up as heat built up in his stomach. Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu. A volley of fireballs spewed from Naruto's mouth. Orochimaru's eyes widened as he moved to dodge the flames. This brat, is he using the Kyuubi's power? Orochimaru wondered in astonishment as he dodged the flame bullets. How else could he perform jutsu like this? You wish. Orochimaru's eyes widened when he saw the boy complete another series of hand seals. His cheeks puffed up again. Futon. Shinkugyoku. The snake Sannin raised his arms to block the blasts of cutting wind that came his way. Unlike the phoenix flower technique, the vacuum sphere was much more difficult to dodge since it covered a larger area. Orochimaru could only guard as the blades of chakra cut into the flesh of his arms and legs. The snake Sannin wiped off the bit of blood that trailed down from his mouth. He glared at the boy who was coming at him again. Orochimaru rushed forward to meet him when he saw the blonde attempt to complete another set of hand signs. Shit, Naruto cursed as he raised his arm to block Orochimaru's fist. He couldn't complete the technique in time. He raised his other arm to block the series of punches and kicks Orochimaru threw at him in rapid succession. Orochimaru smirked when he started pushing the boy back. He might have been tired and low on chakra from his previous fights and from the Kyuubi brat's surprise attack from earlier, but he still had energy to fight. He would not be beaten by a child. The boy was surprisingly good at performing jutsu, and had quite an astonishing amount of chakra even without the Kyuubi, but it was clear Orochimaru was the superior in taijutsu. The boy was good, but Orochimaru was better. Blood flew out Naruto's mouth when Orochimaru got him good with a right hook. The boy dug his feet into the earth as he continued to block Orochimaru's attacks. Physically, Orochimaru was stronger and quicker than he was, which put him at a disadvantage in a close quarters fight. Close combat was something Naruto had always excelled at, but he was fighting a Sannin toe-to-toe, and that was nothing to laugh at. Of course, it was for situations like these Naruto had trained for. Naruto gathered up his wind chakra in his arm as he fell back a bit, allowing Orochimaru to get a few hits in. He could see the man's arrogance reflect off his features as he punched the teen. Naruto smirked a bit when his wind chakra had been concentrated into his right hand. All he had to do now was wait for an opening. There. Naruto's hand shot out towards Orochimaru's stomach, sinking into it as it made contact. Orochimaru's smirk disappeared when he saw Naruto grin. Futon. Senpuken. The massive blast of wind chakra propelled the snake ninja across the earth. Naruto watched as his punch blew Orochimaru backwards across the forest ground. The Jinchuriki grinned at how well he was able to perform ninjutsu and control his chakra. That technique had been homage to Asuma, who had also given him tips on how to use his wind chakra in the past. Haku and Hinata's training really paid off. Naruto smirked to himself. He had used a lot of techniques in rapid succession, but he had plenty of chakra to spare. Using jutsu that Haku had helped him learn and channeling his chakra like Hinata had taught him to was giving him an edge he had never had in the past. I'll finish this today. Orochimaru hit a tree and sank to its base. The man coughed up blood as he desperately tried to regain his breath. This boy is strong, Orochimaru thought, acknowledging the boy's strength in his mind. If he wasn't busy getting beaten to a pulp, he would have considered making the Kyuubi brat his next host instead. The man paled when the possibility of death reared its ugly head. He raised his head to meet the furious eyes of the blonde who was charging at him again, this time with another Rasengan in hand. It was painful and humiliating, but Orochimaru knew he had to find some way to escape, or the boy may very well end up killing him. Orochimaru jumped up into the trees just before the ball of chakra slammed down on him. Naruto's head shot up when Orochimaru started jumping through the trees. Frustration built up inside him as Naruto quickly jumped up to pursue the Sannin. I won't let you escape, Naruto shouted as he jumped through the trees. He had him. He had the advantage. He couldn't let this one-time opportunity slip through his fingers. Naruto's chakra flared as his speed increased. I have to catch him. I can't let him escape, Naruto thought as he rushed towards his target. So blinded by his desire to catch his prey that he was completely unaware of how his raging emotions were affecting his chakra. Persistent little pest, Orochimaru muttered as he looked back at the boy who was trailing him. He was extremely low on chakra, and he'd have to use it efficiently if he was to escape from the boy. Not only that, but Orochimaru was a little wary of how the boy's physical features were slowly changing. Orochimaru drew some kunai from his pouch and threw them at the surrounding trees. Each kunai had an exploding tag on it. The tags detonated and caused the branches and trees to come falling on top of Naruto, who was passing under them. That won't work, Naruto shouted determinedly as he summoned about a dozen clones. The clones all jumped, taking different positions in the air even as the trees started to descend on them. Naruto jumped and used his clones as stepping stones to avoid the branches and trees that were falling on him. He quickly jumped through the obstacles and chased after Orochimaru, who was still well within his sights. "Resourceful, aren't we?" Orochimaru murmured. It didn't matter, he still had one trick up his sleeve. Using the last of his chakra, Orochimaru summoned another snake. Naruto clenched his teeth and summoned a clone to help him form the Rasengan as the reptile tried to strike at him. Just as Naruto was about to hit the snake, he noticed something attached to its head. A flash bomb. Too late to shield his eyes, the orb detonated and covered Naruto in a blinding light. Naruto struck forward blindly, trying to hit the snake. Just as he felt the Rasengan hit its target, he felt one of the snake's large incisors slice into his shoulder. Naruto cursed as the snake disappeared, his hand flew to his shoulder to try and stop the bleeding. Naruto saw spots as he tried to regain his eyesight. He frantically rubbed his eyes in an attempt to clear his vision. When the blinding white finally disappeared and his eyes refocused, he couldn't catch sight of the snake Sannin. No, 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 no. Naruto cursed as he jumped through the trees, ignoring the pain in his shoulder as he tried to catch sight of Orochimaru's back. The ninja was nowhere to be seen. Damn it, I couldn't have lost him. Naruto shouted angrily as he jumped through the trees. From down below, Orochimaru smirked as he heard the boy's angry shouts and curses. He had successfully evaded his opponent. It wasn't something he was proud of, but his life had been preserved. I suppose I was a little careless, Orochimaru muttered to himself as he slowly made his way through the forest. He would accept his loss for today. He'd get in contact with Kabuto and get him to patch him up. There would be another chance to acquire Sasuke. He'd just have to be a little more patient. Just as he started to leave, Orochimaru's eyes widened as he caught sight of a limping form a few feet away. Sasuke Uchiha. Indeed, it was his target limping through the forest as he scanned the trees above him. A kunai was tightly clenched in his hands. Orochimaru smirked as he hid behind a tree. He couldn't believe his good fortune. Come to help your friend, have you? How cute. Orochimaru cackled in his mind. Well, Sasuke-kun, I do believe this is my win. Orochimaru stepped out from behind the tree, making his presence known to Sasuke. The boy's eyes widened when he caught sight of the man and he took a defensive stance. Orochimaru shook his head, chuckling at the boy's poor attempt to fight back. Your bond with that boy is surprising. You'll never grow strong with such weak convictions. Orochimaru taunted as he advanced towards the trembling youth. He licked his lips as his neck extended. When you desire more power, come seek me out. You'll come eventually. They always do. Orochimaru's head shot towards Sasuke as he opened his mouth. Sasuke moved to guard, but in his weak state he couldn't block quickly enough. Orochimaru smiled when he bit into the Uchiha's flesh. Got you. Orochimaru's teeth sank into the boy's neck. With this mark, the Sharingan would become his. The snake Sannin's eyes widened when he felt the boy grab him in a headlock. Sasuke chuckled as grabbed onto the man. It's my win, Orochimaru. The Sannin's eyes widened in alarm when Sasuke poofed into smoke and revealed himself to be a Naruto clone, which quickly disappeared into smoke after transforming back. Too late did Orochimaru notice the boy who was running towards his body with a Rasengan spinning in his hand. Naruto cried out as he swung his arm forward. Take this. Orochimaru tried raising his arms to block, but it did little to stop the attack. The Rasengan exploded, sending Orochimaru flying across the forest ground. He bounced a bit as he came into contact with the earth, only stopping when he finally hit a tree. Naruto held his hand out in front of him, breathing harshly as he slowly calmed himself. He glared at the Sannin's immobile form a few meters away. Did I kill him? Naruto wondered as he took a tentative step forward. He gritted his teeth together in frustration when he saw the battered body twitch. Gwa! Orochimaru's eyes widened as blood spewed from his mouth. Every part of his body was screaming in pain. Many of his bones had been shattered by the force of the blow. His high resilience allowed him to withstand most attacks, but taking a second Rasengan was too much. As much as he wanted to move, to try and escape again, his limbs refused to move. His body was beaten and broken. Orochimaru growled to himself as he watched the blonde boy approach him. He cursed his own carelessness for allowing the boy to surprise him again. His obsession with his target had cost him his only chance to escape. Orochimaru would have laughed at how his prey had been used by a predator. Oh, the irony of it all was just sickening. Naruto could feel his killing intent flare up as he got closer to the downed Sannin. He held out his hand as he gathered chakra in his hand for another Rasengan. The red tint inside the ball of chakra went unnoticed by the Kyuubi container as he stared down at Orochimaru. This is it, Naruto breathed as he glared down at his shattered opponent. He smiled a bit at Orochimaru's pained gasps and harsh breath. He had never gotten a chance to properly pay the man back for all the pain and suffering he had caused in his past life. Hell, Naruto hadn't even been around to see the Snake Sannin's end. Sasuke had been the one to defeat him, and Naruto couldn't really count his battles against Kabuto as fighting Orochimaru, since Kabuto had only absorbed his remains and he had never actually fought Orochimaru himself. Just the thought of finishing the man of himself. This is for everything you've done. For hurting the ones I cared about most, for taking precious people from me. Naruto seethed as he raised his hand. For the past, present, and future. You will pay for everything today, Orochimaru. Die, Naruto shouted as he raised his arm. And just as he was about to bring his attack down on the monster before him, Naruto felt pain explode into his backside. The second after he felt his back get slashed open, a foot collided into the side of Naruto's face, kicking him away from his target. The Jinchuriki gasped as he tried to pick himself up, but was brought down again when he felt someone step on his back. Naruto cried out in pain as pressure was applied to the gashes in his backside. He slowly turned his head towards his attacker. Kabuto, Naruto seethed. All the chakra he had built up suddenly left him as he glared at the traitor. The boy smiled cruelly as he pushed up his glasses. He chuckled a bit as he twirled around the scalpels he had used to cut into Naruto's back in between his fingers. Your expression is familiar. That look of yours is the same one you had when we met during the first exam. Kabuto smiled. I didn't think someone would figure me out that easily. Naruto's eyes widened at this. He had known he was being watched. Naruto cursed his carelessness. Kabuto was no fool, and it was only natural that he would have noticed Naruto's contempt towards him when he made it so obvious when they first met. Though I suppose my cover story was a little bit impractical. I probably wouldn't even be allowed to be a ninja if I had failed the Chunin exams as many times as I had claimed. Kabuto commented lightly. Kabuto. His master's pained, angry voice brought his attention away from the boy he was stepping on. We need to leave now. Orochimaru growled as pain shot through his entire body. I need to, ga. Right away, Orochimaru-sama. Kabuto nodded solemnly. He turned back towards Naruto and smiled as he raised his scalpels. Just let me. He tensed and jumped away just as a sword swung in front of him. It would have decapitated him had he not moved away in time. Kabuto glared at the new arrival. Tisk, how annoying. Yujiro stood her ground as she pointed her sword at the boy with a menacing expression on her face. She held her position in front of Naruto, making sure that the deadly ninja wouldn't get anywhere near her master. You will not harm Naruto-sama. Yujiro hissed as she took a position to strike. Kabuto clicked his tongue in irritation as he jumped to where his master lied. I suppose we'll have to retreat for now, Kabuto said as he gingerly picked the snake Sannin off the ground. His gaze switched from the unexpected visitor to the boy on the ground. We'll do this another day, Naruto-kun. And just like that, Orochimaru and Kabuto disappeared in a puff of smoke. Yujiro, Naruto groaned as the girl sheathed her sword and knelt down beside him. Why are you here? You should be watching. They're fine, Yujiro assured him. I patched up Haku-chan and Anko-san as best I could, and Haku-chan is helping Sasuke-san and Sakura-san recover. I thought you might need help and, well, I'm glad I got here in time. Yeah, Naruto muttered, wincing as he slowly sat up. He let out a hiss of pain when he felt the girl place her hands on his wounds. My healing jutsu will stop the bleeding, Yujiro said softly as her hands emitted a soft green glow. I'll bandage your wounds when the bleeding stops. Thanks, Naruto said stiffly as he stared at where Kabuto and Orochimaru had been. Yujiro glanced at her master's face before turned back to her work. You're disappointed. It was more of a statement than a question. He got away, Naruto growled out. His fists clenched as he thought of how close he had gotten to killing the Sannin. And how Kabuto had stopped him. They got away. I let them get away, Naruto muttered angrily. We'll have another chance, Yujiro said in an attempt to comfort him. Her assurances did little to soothe him. I should have been ready. This was my best chance to get him and I let snaky bastard get away. Naruto yelled to himself, slamming his fists onto the ground. Damn it, he was weak, I had him right where I wanted, and I fucking let him get away. Naruto-sama. Yujiro gazed at her master worriedly. It didn't look like he noticed how his chakra was flaring up. What the hell was Gaara doing? Naruto growled as he searched the branches above him, almost as if he thought of catching sight of the Sannin and his servant laughing at his failure. He was supposed to take care of Kabuto for us. If he had done his job, this wouldn't have happened. We had a plan, damn it. You can't blame Gaara for this. I'm sure there was a reason he was unable to eliminate Kabuto. Yujiro pointed out reasonably, frowning when Naruto started to blame his friend. And could you please stop moving around so much? You might cause your wounds to start bleeding again. Naruto continued to ignore her. What'll happen now? Since we've already missed this chance, he won't be caught off guard again. He'll be cautious now, and that will make killing him that much harder. Naruto shouted as his frustration continued to build. What if he comes for Sasuke again before the finals? He'll be at full power and I won't be able to stop him. I was only able to beat him this time because I caught him by surprise. I had him right where I wanted him. I had the perfect opportunity. Now everyone's lives are in danger because I couldn't stop him. Yujiro sighed and gently placed her hands on Naruto's back. He had to calm down. What will happen during the finals? The old man might get killed again thanks to me. Naruto shouted frantically as memories of the final exams jumped to the front of his mind. The village will get destroyed, my friends might get hurt. Or what if he attacks earlier because of what happened? Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it, Dawaiyowch. Naruto cried out in surprise as pain shot through his back. The boy whimpered as he heard a soft giggle behind him. The boy slowly turned his head towards Yujiro as his joints twitched with lingering pain. Yujiro smiled as her master as she removed her finger from the gash on his back, removing the pressure and his pain. What was that for? I felt it was the only way to calm you down, Naruto-sama. Yujiro smiled at him. She gave him a stern look. You don't really believe that you've truly failed here today, do you? Well, you saw what happened. I let them. And you don't really think Gaara-san is at fault for what happened, do you? You were blaming him for Kabuto's intervention, Yujiro added with a scolding tone. Was I? Naruto scratched his head sheepishly. I didn't really mean that though. You're angry that Orochimaru and Kabuto got away, that is understandable. I know, now they might. Naruto was silenced when a finger was pressed against his lips, silencing any other outbursts. But, Yujiro cut in, you saved Sasuke, did you not? Naruto stared at her. The girl gave him a warm smile in return. You saved him. You kept Orochimaru away from your best friend. I saved him, Naruto said slowly. That's right. As the haze of anger started to lift, allowing his mind to clear, Naruto remembered that Sasuke's neck hadn't had a curse mark on it when he jumped in to save him. That was your original goal, was it not? Yujiro asked him as she took out some medical supplies and started to patch up his wounds. Nobody came out of this uninjured, that was to be expected, but nobody died. Your intent was to keep Orochimaru from marking Sasuke-kun, not to kill the man himself. Better yet, you have changed the original scenario. Maybe. Well, I guess, Naruto mumbled unsurely. He shook his head when memories of the past started coming back to him. But Orochimaru's still out there. Kabuto too. They might come back for us when they go. Naruto winced when he felt Yujiro lightly press her index finger against his cut again. He looked back with a pathetic expression that almost made her giggle. Please don't do that again, Naruto begged in a small voice. What have we talked about before? Yujiro asked her master as she lifted her finger and finished up with the bandages. Being cautious about future events is all well and good, but we have no idea how things will truly turn out to be. Now that Orochimaru has actually attacked, we can notify the Hokage. The extra security will force him and his agents to lay low, and I doubt he'll be moving around much after what you did to him. Naruto had to smile at that. Today was a victory, Naruto-sama, Yujiro said as she stepped in front of him and held out her hand. She smiled brightly down at him. It may not have been exactly what you wanted, but it's the end result that matters. You beat him. Yeah, Naruto nodded, firmly grasping her hand as she helped him up. His feeling of excitement grew as he imagined the snake's beaten, bleeding face. I really got him good, didn't I? I'm sure he has quite a few broken bones. Yujiro smiled. That was an understatement. Only the future Hokage could take on a Sannin and win. Naruto shouted, throwing his head back as he laughed triumphantly. His old, carefree self emerged for a brief moment. That's what he gets for underestimating me. That's right. He knew that the snake-faced bastard would be back for a second round, and when that time came he wouldn't hold anything back. The only reason Naruto had won this time was because he had his friends helping him, he had the element of surprise on his side, and his opponent had sorely underestimated him. Still, regardless of how he beat the Sannin, Yujiro was right. He had won, and only now did Naruto see it fit to relish in his victory. Naruto-sama, I think we should head back to the others. Yujiro gestured towards the forest. The others may start to worry if we're not back soon. Yeah, you're right, I can't wait to brag about how I beat that bastard. Naruto grinned as he followed Yujiro into the forest. Before they broke out in a sprint, Naruto caught the girl's shoulder. Hey, Yujiro. What is Naruto-sama? Yujiro asked, tilting her head to the side curiously. Thanks. Think nothing of it. Yujiro waved him off. Bandaging you up was no trouble, and I'm always willing to. No, not just for that. Naruto interrupted her. He smiled gratefully at her. I wanted to say thanks for cheering me up like you did. I was really worked up about losing Orochimaru and you helped me to see the bright side of things. Of course. Yujiro smiled at him. I will always be here to lend my support. There's something else too, Naruto continued. Thanks for saving me back there. You saw, didn't you? Kabuto had me on the ground, ready to gut me. Naruto scratched the back of his head nervously. If you hadn't been there to save me, well, I seriously doubt that I'd get a third chance to do things over again. I will always do my best to protect my master. Yujiro said confidently. It is the servant's duty. Then I hope I'll be able to repay you someday by doing a friend's duty. Naruto replied just as confidently. His statement, however, had left her in a puzzled statement. A friend's duty, Naruto-sama. I'll protect you next time. Naruto grinned at her. I vowed to myself that I wouldn't lose any of my friends this time, and that includes you. Yujiro just stared at her master for a few moments before bowing her head in embarrassment. She played with one of her white locks as her cheeks turned pink. Thank you, Yujiro murmured softly. No, Yujiro. Thank you. Naruto smiled at her. Yujiro couldn't help but smile back, all the while thinking about how she could repay her master for expressing such kindness. However, unbeknownst to her, Naruto was thinking about how he could possibly repay her kindness and for everything she had done for him. Oh, Naruto-sama, Yujiro said suddenly, remembering something that she had almost forgotten to mention. What is it? Naruto asked as he turned back towards her. He was about to jump into the foliage before she called out to him. Were you feeling strange at all when you were fighting Orochimaru? Yujiro asked. Strange? No, I don't think so, Naruto said slowly, sounding a bit unsure himself. Truthfully, he wasn't really thinking through that whole battle. He had tunnel vision and the only thing on his mind was killing the snake Sannin. Why would Yujiro ask something like this? Well, I don't know if you noticed how your chakra was reacting. Naruto's eyes widened. Not only that, but your features had only just started returning to normal when I showed up. Yujiro said solemnly. I think the Kyuubi may have been reacting to your anger. Naruto stared at her for a moment before placing a hand on his stomach. He had almost forgotten about his demon. He had been so uncharacteristically quiet that Naruto hadn't paid him any attention recently. He was happy Yujiro had pointed this out. I could have set him up for a grave mistake later on and it was certainly an issue that still needed to be resolved. Thanks for telling me, Naruto murmured, nodding gratefully to his companion. Of course, Yujiro nodded back, giving him a light smile. Now, let's go meet up with the others. Right. Naruto and Yujiro jumped into the forest and headed towards their friends. Yujiro picked up their scent immediately. As they jumped through the trees, Naruto's thoughts jumped to the demon that his body contained. The first chance he got, he would have a talk with the oversized furball. It had been a long time since their argument, and he needed to make amends quickly if it would help him survive in the future. XXXXX. Orochimaru hissed as Kabuto applied his healing jutsu to his battered and beaten body. Even though the pain was enormous, Orochimaru was able to ignore it all. His mind was not focusing on the pain itself, but rather on the one who had caused this extreme pain. That Kyuubi brat, Orochimaru snarled. It was embarrassing. It was absolute humiliation. He wouldn't be able to bear it if someone other than Kabuto was to see him in this pathetic state. And to know who did it. If it had been his old teacher, Orochimaru knew that battle would not leave him uninjured. If it was Jiraiya or Tsunade he probably wouldn't be able to leave without acquiring a fair share of cuts and bruises. But this was different. This was something he couldn't tolerate. He, the great snake Orochimaru, had been beaten by a child. Even knowing that the brat was a Jinchuriki did not help improve his mood. While the boy's chakra had changed slightly during their fight, he hadn't taken notice of it, which led Orochimaru to believe, or at least assume, that the boy didn't have any contact with the beast whatsoever. Whether that was true or not was irrelevant, and the fact that the boy had kept the Sannin from his target was just rubbing salt in his wounds. Oh, he'd have his revenge. He'd get sweet vengeance on the brat when he recovered. And despite his foul mood and the intense loathing he had for the blonde Jinchuriki, Orochimaru couldn't help but wonder if he would make a better body than Sasuke. I've managed to heal your cells and mend a few broken bones, but what I can do in the field is limited without proper supplies, Orochimaru-sama. Kabuto smiled as he snapped the man's arm back into place, earning another hiss of pain from the Sannin. Healing you is a little more challenging than fixing regular humans. Orochimaru glared at his subordinate as he flexed his hand. He could still feel pricks of pain running across his arm, but it wasn't as bad as before. His current body would need at least a month to recover from the wounds the brat had inflicted on him. The Rasengan was truly a destructive technique.